The bank manager turned his monitor toward me and tapped a line near the bottom of the screen. "Mr. Walsh, I need you to look at this." I leaned closer. The transaction was for $18,150, outgoing external transfer, completed at 8:43 the previous evening. I recognized the account it came from. Carol and I had opened that savings account 26 years earlier, back when our idea of an emergency fund was enough money to replace the furnace without putting it on a credit card. What I did not recognize was the destination. Harrison and Pike, PLLC Client Trust. Charlotte, North Carolina. "Who authorized it?" I asked. The manager did not answer right away. Her name was Nina Patel, probably in her early 40s. Calm in the way bank managers become calm after years of customers insisting a check cannot possibly have bounced. Now she looked uncomfortable. "Sir," she turned the screen a little farther, "your dead wife made this transfer yesterday." For several seconds I thought I had misunderstood her. "My wife has been dead 13 months. I know." "No, you don't understand. Carol died last April." "I do understand." "Then say that again." Nina folded her hands. "The transfer was initiated under Carol Walsh's online banking profile." I stared at the screen. There are things grief teaches you to expect. A medical bill months after the funeral. A birthday reminder you forgot to delete. A piece of mail addressed to both of you that makes you stand at the mailbox longer than necessary. What grief does not prepare you for is a bank employee telling you that your wife moved almost $19,000 while you were brushing your teeth upstairs. That profile should be dead too, Nina nodded. It should have been disabled when the bank was notified of her death. You were notified. Yes, I brought the death certificate into this branch. I can see the estate service notation. Then how did this happen? That's what we're trying to determine. I sat back. I was 70 and had spent 35 years in municipal procurement for Knox County, Tennessee. I was not a banker, but I knew enough about approvals, access controls, vendor records, and audit trails to distrust any sentence beginning with, "The system says." Systems do not decide to move money. People do something, and systems remember pieces of it. What exactly does your system say Carol did? Nina seemed to appreciate the wording. She turned back to the keyboard. The transfer was entered through her individual online profile. It came from a device the bank had previously recognized. What kind of device? I can't see the model from this screen. The fraud team may be able to. Phone? Possibly. Tablet? Computer? I don't want to guess. Location? Not here. Can you see an IP address? Not at branch level. What security verification was used? She clicked through another screen. There was no password reset event. That wasn't my question? No, it wasn't. She looked again. The transfer passed the normal authentication for a recognized device. I don't want to tell you more until our digital fraud team reviews the log. That answer irritated me. It was also responsible. I had spent a career watching people create bigger problems by being certain 5 minutes too early. Has the money arrived? It shows completed. So it's gone. It has left your account. That does not mean it cannot potentially be recovered. Potentially, yes. What is Harrison and Pike? Nina searched only the information attached to the transfer. An external account at Piedmont Commercial Bank. The descriptor identifies the recipient as a client trust account. A law firm? That would be my assumption from the name, but I cannot confirm who their client is from this transaction record. Charlotte. I knew one person in Charlotte, my daughter Rachel. I did not say her name, not yet. Instead I asked, who else can use Carol's online profile? Anyone who knows the credentials and can satisfy the authentication. That sounds like more people than should. Do you know whether anyone had her passwords? No. The answer came too fast. Nina noticed. So did I. I corrected myself. I don't know who had them. That's different. Yes. Carol had kept passwords in a small green address book. She swore was safer than any computer because hackers can't reach the drawer beside my bed. I argued with her for years. Then, during the last 4 months of her life, convenience defeated security. Rachel helped with pharmacy logins, insurance portals, hospital billing, email, Carol's phone, her iPad. The two of them spent long afternoons in our bedroom sorting digital clutter while I handled appointments, meals, medications, and the growing number of things nobody teaches you how to do when your wife is dying. After the funeral, I canceled Carol's credit cards, closed her individual checking account, changed the utilities, notified Social Security, and sold her car. I thought I had handled the bank profiles too. Apparently I had handled the account, not the profile. Mr. Walsh, does anyone still have access to your wife's devices? The question landed harder than it should have. Her phone is in my desk. What about a computer or tablet? I looked toward the closed office door. Carol's iPad. Rachel had it. Not because she stole it, because I gave it to her 3 days after the funeral. Carol had thousands of photographs on it. Rachel wanted pictures of her mother with Sophie, my granddaughter. I told her to take the whole thing and bring it back whenever she was finished. She never did. I never asked. Her iPad is with my daughter. Where does your daughter live? I looked at Nina. Charlotte. She did not react. Good bankers learn not to react. Does your daughter know your wife's online banking password? I don't know. Did she ever help Mrs. Walsh with banking? Not that I saw. That was true. I started to add that Rachel had never taken $1 from us in her life. Then I stopped. Character references are not evidence. Nina slid a form across the desk. We need to secure online access immediately and open an unauthorized transfer claim if you are stating you did not approve this. I did not approve it. Did you know about it before this morning? No. Did you authorize anyone else to make it? No. Do you have reason to believe a family member may have done it? I looked at the signature line. My pen stayed above the paper. Does that change what the bank does? It can change how certain disputes are investigated. I'm not asking you to accuse anyone. I'm asking whether there is relevant information we should record. I thought about Rachel. 44 years old, my only child. Married to Aaron Vaughn for 19 years. Their daughter Sophie was 17. Rachel and I had not been what I would call estranged, but we had not been good either. Not since Christmas. She had left my house early after an argument that began over nothing and ended with me telling her she needed to stop making excuses for her husband. She told me I had no idea what happened inside her marriage. I told her that was because every time I asked, she changed the subject. Carol would have hated that argument. She had spent the last year of her life trying to keep Rachel and me from turning concern into stubbornness. I had not spoken to Rachel in 12 days. That was not normal for us. It was also not evidence. Write that my daughter has possession of Carol's old iPad, I said. Nothing more. Nina wrote it down. Then she froze the online profiles, ordered replacement credentials for mine, and called the bank's digital fraud department while I sat there. The fraud specialist asked me many of the same questions. Did I recognize the recipient? No. Had I recently clicked an email or text claiming to be from the bank? No. Had I shared my password? No. Had I received an authentication code I did not request? No. Then she asked something different. Mr. Walsh, was your wife's email account closed after her death? I looked at the carpet. No. Do you still have access? I think so. Does anyone else? I don't know. Another thing I had left unfinished. Carol's email account stayed active because canceling it felt strangely final. For months, I told myself I needed it for receipts and medical correspondence. By the 1-year anniversary, that excuse had become weak. I simply did not want the address to disappear. The fraud specialist said, "Please do not access or delete anything from that email until we advise you what information may be useful." I understand. When did you last log into it? Months ago. Would your daughter know the password? Yes. That answer I knew. Rachel had reset it during Carol's hospice care. The specialist became quiet for a moment, then said, "Thank you. That's relevant." Relevant is one of those words that can ruin a morning. By the time I left the bank, the savings account was restricted against further external transfers. My online password was changed, and an investigation had been opened. Nina walked me to the lobby. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Do you believe my wife made the transfer?" She gave me a tired smile. "I believe a system recorded her profile making it. That's the right answer." Outside, I sat in my truck without starting it. I took out my phone. Rachel's name was 3 entries below the bank. I could have called the fraud department first. I could have called the law firm in Charlotte. I could have driven home and opened Carol's email. Instead, I called my daughter. She answered on the second ring. "Dad," I said, "do you still have Mom's iPad?" Nothing. Not background noise, not confusion. Nothing. Then Rachel said very quietly, "Why?" $18,750 left my savings account last night. Another silence. "It was transferred using your mother's online profile." Rachel breathed in. I heard a door close on her end. Dad, do you have the iPad? Yes. Did you use it last night? She did not answer. That was answer enough for the next question. What is Harrison and Pike? Her voice changed. Not defensive, afraid. Please tell me you haven't called Aaron. I looked through the windshield at the bank entrance. I didn't know Aaron was part of this. He isn't. Then why can't I call him? Because he cannot know about that transfer. Rachel, that is my money. I know. You used your dead mother's bank login. I know. You moved almost $19,000 without asking me. I know. My hand tightened around the phone. Where did it go? She began crying. Dad, I need you to give me until tonight. No. Please. No. You used your mother's name to move my money. You don't get to schedule the explanation. There was a long pause. Then she said, Mom knew about Harrison and Pike. I stopped. What did you say? She knew. Carol has been dead 13 months. I know. Then how could she know about a transfer made yesterday? She didn't know about yesterday. Rachel's breathing shook. She knew what the money was for. I sat perfectly still. You're telling me your mother planned this? No. Then what are you telling me? Rachel cried quietly into the phone. I'm telling you that if Mom were still alive, you wouldn't be finding out this way. Before I could answer, she added one sentence that changed the problem completely. And Dad, the money isn't for me. And Dad, the money isn't for me. I stayed in the bank parking lot with my truck turned off. Then, who is it for? Rachel did not answer. I could hear traffic on her end, and something mechanical in the background. Maybe the air conditioning unit outside her office. Rachel. Sophie. That was not the answer I expected. What does Sophie need $18,750 for? It's not like that. Then make it like something. She gave a small, nervous laugh that disappeared immediately. Harrison and Pike is a law firm. I had gathered that from the words client trust. They do family law and financial litigation. Which one? Both, in our case. I closed my eyes. Our. You just told me the money wasn't for you. It's not for me in the way you think. I don't know what way I think because you haven't told me anything. She became quiet again. Then she said, I need to talk to you in person. You live 4 hours away. I can come tonight. What is Aaron not supposed to know? Dad. What is he not supposed to know? That I hired them. There it was. Not everything. Enough. You hired a lawyer without telling your husband. Yes. And paid the retainer with my money using your dead mother's login. Yes. I looked toward the bank entrance. People walked in carrying deposit envelopes and coffee cups. Nobody appeared to be dealing with a dead spouse moving money. Is this a divorce? Rachel's breathing changed. I don't know yet. That sounds like a yes with extra steps. It isn't. Then what is it? It's me trying to figure out whether Sophie is protected before I make any decision. Protected from what? Rachel whispered. I can't do this from work. That told me where she was. What does Aaron know? Not enough. That is not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. I felt anger building, not the explosive kind, the colder kind that starts organizing facts. Rachel had always hated when I did that. Carol used to say I could turn a family argument into a procurement review before dessert. Did your mother tell you to use my bank account? No. The answer was immediate. That mattered. Did Carol tell you the money was yours? No. Did she tell you to take money without asking me? No. Then stop telling me your mother knew as though that makes yesterday acceptable. Rachel started crying. I know it doesn't. What exactly did she know? She knew about Harrison and Pike. When? Before she died? How long before? Maybe 2 months. I sat straighter. Carol had been in home hospice during most of her final 7 weeks. 2 months before she died, she was weak but clear enough to manage her own conversations. Did she speak to them? Yes. With you? Yes. About Aaron? Silence. Rachel. Yes. I looked down at my hand. The wedding ring I had stopped wearing 6 months after Carol died had left a faint pale band that still appeared when the light hit it right. What did she think Aaron had done? I'm coming tonight. You keep saying that. Because if I tell you half of this over the phone, you'll call him. That irritated me because it was probably true. I haven't called him. Because you didn't know he was involved until 5 minutes ago. Also true. Rachel knew me. That was one of the problems between us. 6 o'clock, I said. I may not get there until 7. Then 7. Don't call Aaron. I won't promise that. Dad, please. I promise I will not call him before you get here, unless I learn something that requires it. She exhaled. That is the most dad answer possible. 7. I'll be there. After we hung up, I stayed in the truck another 10 minutes. The easiest conclusion was that Rachel was leaving her husband. Carol knew the marriage had trouble. Rachel needed legal money. She used an old password because she did not have enough of her own, or did not want Aaron seeing the expense. Wrong, unacceptable, but understandable in the ordinary ways desperate people become understandable after they do something they should not have done, except for Sophie. Rachel had not said she needed protection. She said she needed to know whether Sophie was protected. That wording mattered. Carol and I had one child. We had expected more. Life had other plans. Rachel came after 3 miscarriages and 2 years in which Carol became tired of people saying things happened for a reason. By the time our daughter was born, I had already become the kind of father who checked the crib twice before bed. Carol became the parent who told me to stop checking. That arrangement lasted 44 years. I worried. Carol translated the worry into something Rachel could live with. When Rachel married Aaron Vaughn at 25, I did not like him immediately. That is not as meaningful as it sounds. I did not like anyone immediately if they wanted to marry my daughter. Aaron earned his way past it. He worked construction management, then started a commercial renovation company with a partner. He was not flashy. He drove trucks until the doors stopped closing correctly and did most of his own repairs. When Carol's mother needed a wheelchair ramp, Aaron built it over one weekend and refused payment. When my roof lost shingles in a storm, he drove from Charlotte with tarps before my insurance adjuster. Even called back. And when Carol became sick, he came more often than I expected. Sometimes without Rachel. He fixed a loose handrail beside our basement stairs, replaced the garbage disposal, sat with me on the porch once at midnight when neither of us knew what to say. I trusted him. That mattered. Sophie arrived a year after Rachel and Aaron's wedding. 17 now. Quiet in groups, funny when she forgot to be self-conscious. She had Carol's habit of folding one leg underneath herself at the dinner table, despite being told not to. The last time Sophie visited me, she spent 40 minutes trying to teach me how shared photo albums worked, gave up, and said, "Grandpa, you are why tech support charges money." I told her she was why universities charge tuition. College had become the main subject that year. Sophie wanted North Carolina State if she got enough aid. Aaron preferred UNC Charlotte because she could live at home. Rachel told me they were keeping options open. At Christmas, I made the mistake of asking what the college account looked like, not the exact balance, just whether they were in good shape. Carol and I had contributed to it for years. Birthday money, Christmas money, a few larger checks when municipal retirement and Social Security finally made me realize I was not going to spend everything before dying. Aaron answered before Rachel. "We're fine." Rachel stared at her plate. I noticed. I asked, "Fine enough for what?" Aaron said, "Whatever Sophie decides." Rachel said, "Dad, not tonight." That should have been the end of it. Instead, later that evening I asked Rachel privately whether Aaron's company was having trouble. She became defensive. I had heard from a mutual acquaintance that one of Aaron's larger commercial jobs was tied up in a payment dispute. Nothing unusual in construction. Contractors can be owed 6 figures on paper and still struggle to make payroll Friday. Rachel said the business was fine. I asked why she looked worried every time college came up. She said I was reading too much into things. I told her she had spent half her life making excuses for Aaron whenever money got tight. That was unfair, not completely invented, but unfair. She told me I had no idea what happened inside her marriage. I said that was because every time I asked, she changed the subject. That ended Christmas. They left before coffee. Carol would have told me I confused noticing a problem with earning the right to force an answer. She had said variations of that for years. Since her death, I had become worse at leaving questions alone. Partly because there was nobody beside me afterward saying, "David, let people come to you. My name is David Walsh." Carol was the only person who could make it sound like both a warning and an affectionate insult. Back home from the bank, I did not call Aaron. I made coffee, did not drink it. Then I stood in my study, looking at the empty space on the bookshelf where Carol's iPad used to charge. I had forgotten about it for months. That bothered me, not because forgetting an old tablet meant anything dramatic, Because the transfer had required access, a recognized device, Carol's profile, likely her email. Rachel possessed all three. That was evidence. Her explanation about Carol was not. At 11:30, the fraud department called. A woman named Elaine Foster told me the preliminary digital review showed the transaction had been initiated from a device previously associated with Carol's profile. Can you tell whether it was the iPad? Not conclusively from what I can release to you yet. Charlotte, the network information is consistent with North Carolina. That was enough. Was anything hacked? We have not identified a credential reset or account takeover pattern. So somebody already had the credentials. That is one possibility. What was used to authenticate? There was an email confirmation associated with the external recipient setup. Carol's email. Yes. I closed my eyes. Rachel had not guessed one password and stumbled into my savings account. She had used a chain of access Carol left behind. Can I log into the email? Elaine said. If you are an authorized user or have lawful access, yes, but please do not delete or alter anything relevant. Preserve messages and forward copies only if our investigator requests them. I thanked her. Then I sat at Carol's old desk and opened my laptop. I had access to her email because after she died, I changed the recovery number to mine. The password still worked. The inbox held more than 6,000 messages. Drugstore coupons, church newsletters, medical billing, recipes, a reminder from a garden center that her reward points were expiring. I had to stop for a minute after that one. Then I searched. Harrison Pike. 3 results appeared. My mouth went dry. The oldest was dated 15 months earlier, 2 months before Carol died. Sender, Megan Harrison. Subject, confidential consultation follow-up. The message began, Mrs. Walsh and Mrs. Vaughn, thank you for speaking with me today. I read that first sentence twice. Rachel had told the truth. Carol had spoken with the lawyer. The rest of the email was careful. No dramatic accusation. No detailed legal advice. It confirmed they had discussed family financial concerns affecting a minor child and said no attorney-client relationship had been established because additional information was needed. Then, one sentence stood out. If the account activity you described continues, it will be important to determine who legally owns and controls the education funds before any further withdrawals occur. Education funds. Sophie. I read farther. Carol had replied the same day. Only 4 lines. Thank you. Rachel is scared of making this bigger than it is. I'm scared she has waited so long that it already is. David does not know yet. I want him told before anyone uses money or makes decisions in his name. I stopped breathing for a second. Before anyone uses money. Before anyone makes decisions in his name. That did not sound like permission for what happened yesterday. The second email was from Rachel to Carol. Please do not tell Dad until I know exactly what Aaron did. He likes Aaron. He'll confront him before I'm ready. Carol replied, then get ready. Secrets are expensive. That was Carol. Short, annoyingly accurate. The final result was dated 6 days before she died. A draft in Carol's sent folder. Addressed to Rachel. You cannot protect Sophie by protecting Aaron from consequences, and you cannot protect your father by keeping him ignorant. Tell David, if you need help after that, we help together. I sat alone at the desk. Rachel had told me Carol knew about Harrison and Pike. True. She had implied Carol knew what the money was for. Maybe partly true, but Carol's own words said something very different from the permission Rachel had borrowed from her memory. My wife had known there was a financial problem involving Sophie. She had known Aaron was connected to it. And 6 days before she died, she had told our daughter to bring me into the truth. Rachel never did. 13 months later, instead of telling me, she used Carol's old device, Carol's old banking profile, and money that legally belonged to me to finish something Carol had explicitly said we were supposed to face together. I printed all 3 emails and laid them across Carol's desk. Then I searched for the name of the account. The lawyer's message did not identify it, but one reply from Carol included the last 4 digits. That number meant nothing to me until I opened the bottom drawer of the file cabinet. Carol had kept a folder labeled Sophie, College. Inside were birthday cards, copies of old checks, tax documents, and statements from Piedmont Investment Services. The account title on the first page was Rachel Vaughn, custodian for Sophie Vaughn under NCUTMA. I knew what a custodial account was. Not because I was an investment expert, because Carol and I had opened the account with Rachel when Sophie was 6. We wanted someplace for gifts that legally belonged to Sophie, rather than another savings account her parents might accidentally treat as household money. Over the years, Carol and I put money into it whenever we could. $1,000 at Christmas. $500 on birthdays. More after I retired. Carol's mother left Sophie $5,000, and that went into the same account. Rachel was custodian because she was Sophie's mother. I had trusted that arrangement completely. I found the last full statement Carol had filed. 16 months earlier. Balance, $94,881.42. I sat back. That was more than I remembered. Some of it was investment growth. Some came from Rachel and Aaron. A large part came from Carol and me. I turned through earlier statements. Steady contributions, very few withdrawals. Then the statement stopped. Not because the account closed, because Carol became sick, and our filing system became whatever paper was closest to the printer. I checked online access. Nothing. Piedmont was not one of my accounts. I could not call and demand information just because I was the grandfather who had put money into it. The account belonged to Sophie. Rachel was custodian. That distinction mattered. At 1:30, I called Harrison and Pike. I told the receptionist only my name and that a transfer from my bank account had been sent to their client trust account. She put me on hold. A few minutes later, a man from their accounting department came on. He was polite and careful. Yes, Mr. Walsh, we can confirm receipt of funds associated with a client matter. Whose matter? I'm not permitted to disclose client information. I'm the person whose money arrived. I understand. Was the transfer expected? Another pause. I can confirm the amount matches a requested trust deposit. So somebody knew exactly what amount to send? Yes. Who? I can't answer that. Can you return it? If you are disputing the transfer with your bank, our firm will respond through the appropriate process. That was not a no. It was not a yes either. Is Megan Harrison there? She is in court this afternoon. Does she represent my daughter? I can't confirm that. You're very good at this. I'm afraid that's part of the job. I almost liked him. Before hanging up, I said, "Tell Ms. Harrison David Walsh called. Tell her Rachel knows I'm aware of the transfer. I can pass along the message." That was all I could legitimately get. So I waited. I hated waiting. Carol knew that. She used to say I could wait patiently for a contractor to submit a bid for 30 days and become unreasonable if Rachel took 20 minutes to answer a text. At 6:48 that evening, headlights moved across my living room wall. Rachel parked in the driveway. She came in carrying an accordion folder and a laptop bag. No Aaron, no Sophie. She looked tired. Not one night tired, the kind that had been accumulating. I did not hug her. She did not try. Coffee? No. Water? Yes. I handed her a glass. She sat at the kitchen table. Carol's chair was behind her. I almost asked her to move, then decided that was grief talking. Rachel put the folder between us. I brought what I have. Start at the beginning. She stared at the water. The beginning depends on which mistake you mean. That sounds promising. She almost smiled, then didn't. Aaron's company got into trouble about 18 months ago. The hotel project? She looked surprised. You knew? I knew there was a payment dispute. It was worse than he told people. How much worse? They were owed about $400,000 across 2 jobs. Actually owed or invoiced? Rachel looked at me. You always do that. There's a difference. I know. She rubbed her forehead. One client disputed change orders. Another stopped paying after financing fell apart. Aaron still had payroll, subcontractors, equipment leases. How does Sophie's money enter the story? He asked me if we could borrow from it. I waited. And? I said no. When? September. The year before Carol died. Then what? He kept asking. How much? 30,000. For how long? 6 weeks, maybe 2 months? And you still said no? Yes. What happened? Rachel looked toward the window. I got a notification from Piedmont. What notification? That a withdrawal had been processed. How much? 24,000. I did not speak. I called Aaron. And? He said he had transferred it into the business operating account. Using whose authority? My login. How did he have it? We did taxes together. He knew most of my passwords. You told Carol? Not immediately. How long? About 3 weeks. Did Aaron repay it? Some. How much? 10,000 at first. At first? Rachel nodded. Then another 5. So 9,000 remained. Yes. Then what? Another withdrawal. How much? 18. I felt my jaw tighten. Without permission again? She looked at me. Yes. Not enough hesitation for me to accuse her. Enough for me to notice. When was that? December. That's when your mother knew? Right after Christmas. How? She noticed I was upset. That has never been enough information for your mother. Rachel looked down. She kept asking. That sounds more like her. I finally showed her. The statements? Yes. And she made you call the lawyer. She helped me find one. Harrison and Pike. Yes. What did the lawyer tell you? That the account wasn't just family savings. It belonged to Sophie. That as custodian, I had obligations. You needed a lawyer to tell you that? Rachel flinched. No. Then what did you need the lawyer for? To tell me what I could do if Aaron had taken money using my access. And they wanted statements, business records, proof of where the money went. They also said if I knew he was using the account and allowed it to continue, that could become a problem for me too. There was the first sentence that sounded larger than Aaron stealing passwords. How much was missing when you spoke to them? About 27,000 net. Net? Because some had been repaid. How much total had been withdrawn? 42. I did the arithmetic. 24 plus 18. Exactly 2 withdrawals? Rachel looked at me. At that point, I leaned back. How many now? She did not answer. Rachel. 7. I stared at her. 7 withdrawals? Yes. Total. About 76,000. My first instinct was to stand up. I stayed seated. How much is back? Maybe 31? Maybe? Some repayment went directly into the account. Some money Aaron says he set aside elsewhere. Where? I don't know. So roughly $45,000 of Sophie's money is missing. Rachel's eyes filled. Yes. And you allowed this to continue for more than a year. I was trying to stop it. No. You were hiding it. That too? The answer took some of the force out of me. Why? Because his company was close to failing. That is not Sophie's responsibility. I know. You knew then? Yes. So why? Rachel started crying. If the company failed, we could lose the house. Then you lose the house. You say that because you're not the one telling your 17-year-old her home is gone. No, I'm the one being told her college money is gone instead. She wiped her face. Dad, I know. Does Sophie know? No. Of course she didn't. Does Aaron know you hired Harrison and Pike again? No. Again? Rachel nodded. We stopped working with them when Mom got worse. You stopped? I did. Why? Because they wanted me to take steps I wasn't ready to take. What steps? Separate financial access, preserve records. Tell Aaron formally he could not use Sophie's account, possibly seek an injunction if funds kept moving. That sounds like what lawyers do when money keeps moving. I know. What did you do instead? I changed the password. And? Aaron apologized. He said the company had a large receivable coming in. He promised he'd replace everything. Did you believe him? I wanted to. That was more honest. What happened after your mother died? Rachel looked at Carol's chair. I stopped checking for a while. You stopped checking the account where your husband had already taken $42,000? I stopped checking a lot of things. Grief again. Useful explanation. Dangerous excuse. When did you realize it had continued? February. 5 months ago. Yes. How much then? Another 22,000. And still you didn't tell me. No. Why not? Because Mom was gone. I stared at her. That should have made telling me easier. It made it harder. How? Because she was the person who could explain it without making you hate Aaron. I almost laughed. You were protecting him from me. I was protecting Sophie from what would happen if everything exploded before I knew what was left. That word again. Protected. What is left? Rachel opened the accordion folder. She slid a current Piedmont statement toward me. Balance, 52,906.18. I stared at it. 16 months earlier, the account held almost $95,000. There should have been growth and additional contributions since then. Instead, it had lost nearly half its value. Are these all the withdrawals? I think so. You think? I printed everything Piedmont showed online. I began reading the transaction history. 3 transfers went to Vaughn Commercial Renovations, LLC. 1 went to an account labeled Vaughn Household Checking. 2 were transfers to an outside bank with only the last 4 digits visible, and 1 was different. $9,600, recipient R. Vaughn, individual. I looked up. What is this? Rachel's face changed. That's not Aaron's business account. I can read. She reached for the statement. I kept my hand on it. Whose account is R. Vaughn individual? Rachel did not answer. You just spent an hour telling me your husband took Sophie's money. He did. That wasn't my question. She looked at me, then at the 9,600 line. That account is mine. The working theory I had been building all day stopped being simple. Aaron had taken money. That much appeared true, but at least one withdrawal had gone somewhere he did not control, and the custodian whose name had always been legally attached to Sophie's account was sitting across from me asking me to believe she had spent 15 months trying to stop a problem that had, at least once, paid her directly. And the custodian whose name had always been legally attached to Sophie's account was sitting across from me asking me to believe she had spent 15 months trying to stop a problem that had, at least once, paid her directly. I tapped the $9,600 line. Start here. Rachel looked at it. That one came back. What does that mean? I moved it out for 5 days. Why? Because I panicked. That word is doing a lot of work tonight. I know. She pulled another statement from the folder. Look at January 17th. I followed the transactions. There it was, a deposit into Sophie's custodial account, $9,600, same amount. Where did you move it? To an account only I had access to. Your account. Yes. Why would moving Sophie's money into your name protect it? It wouldn't legally, I know that now. You knew the account belonged to her. Yes. Then what were you thinking? Rachel closed her eyes. I had just discovered the second withdrawal, the $18,000. Aaron was in Atlanta for a project meeting. I changed the Piedmont password, but I didn't trust that he didn't know the recovery questions or have something saved on another device. So you moved money, only the cash portion, into your personal account, for 5 days. That doesn't make it proper. No. What happened after 5 days? Megan Harrison told me to put it back. The lawyer. She told you that? She said if I believed Sophie's account was being misused, the answer was not for me to move the money into an account titled personally to me. That seems obvious. It does now. It was obvious then too. Rachel nodded. Yes. That answer mattered. No argument. No attempt to make confusion sound like innocence. What did Harrison tell you to do instead? Open a new custodial account at another institution if necessary. Transfer assets properly, preserve records, and stop sharing credentials. Did you? No. Why? Rachel looked ashamed. Because Aaron came home. I stared at her. That's the reason? He knew I had changed the password. How? He tried to log in. And? He confronted me. What happened? He cried. I had expected anger. Not that. He said the company was about to receive money from the Greenville job. He showed me invoices. Emails from the owner's representative. A payment schedule. Were they real? Yes. Did the money come? Some. How much? About $110,000. That is not nothing. No. What did he do with it? Payroll, suppliers, taxes, and Sophie? He put $10,000 back. I remembered that repayment. You believed him again. Yes. Did he know you had spoken to a lawyer? No. Did your mother? Yes. I looked at Carol's empty chair. What did she think? She thought I was making the same mistake twice. She was right. I know. I went back to the statement. So this $9,600 is not money you kept? No. Did any of Sophie's money pay your personal expenses? Rachel did not answer quickly enough. How much? $2,300. I stared at her. For what? The mortgage. When? March. After your mother died? Before. Carol died in April. Why? Aaron's business account was overdrawn. Our joint account was short. The mortgage draft was going to bounce. So you used Sophie's money. I did. Did Aaron know? Yes. You authorized that one? Yes. I sat back. There are facts that do not become less wrong because they are smaller than expected. $2,300 was not $76,000. It was still Sophie's. What did you tell yourself? Rachel looked at the table. That we were protecting her home. That is exactly the kind of sentence people use when they want a child's money to become family money. I know. Did you repay it? Yes. When? 3 weeks later, after my paycheck and Aaron's draw. Can you show me? She found the transaction. $2,300 returned. There it was. No interest, no explanation, just the money back. My working theory changed again. Rachel was not an innocent custodian watching Aaron steal. She had crossed the line herself. Not for jewelry, not for vacations. Not because she believed Sophie's money belonged to her. She had started accepting the same dangerous idea Aaron apparently had. Temporary use did not count if you intended to replace it. Which withdrawals did you authorize? Rachel took a pen. She marked the $9,600 transfer to her own account, the $2,300 mortgage transfer, then another, $7,500 to Vaughn Commercial Renovations. I looked at her. You authorized business money too? Yes. When? February. Why? Aaron had a payroll shortfall. You had already hired Harrison and Pike. Yes. You had already been told the account belonged to Sophie. Yes. You had already discovered 2 withdrawals you say Aaron made without permission. Yes. And you still sent $7,500 into his company. Rachel wiped tears from her face. Yes. Why should I believe you now? She looked up. You shouldn't believe me because I'm your daughter. That was not the answer I expected. Believe the records. She pushed the folder toward me. That's why I brought everything. I looked at her. Everything? She hesitated, then said, everything I know how to get. Different answer. Better answer. Why did you finally go back to Harrison and Pike? Sophie applied for a scholarship. I frowned. What does that have to do with Aaron? The application asked for financial information, assets in her name, the custodial account. Yes. She knows it exists. She knows there's college money. Does she know how much? She thinks there's around 90,000. My stomach tightened. Because that's what you told her, a year ago. And now there's 53. Yes. When did the scholarship application happen? Last month. What did Sophie ask? Rachel's voice broke. She asked whether she needed to list all of it because she didn't want to accidentally lie. I looked away. Of all the words she could have used. Accidentally lie, Rachel continued. She was sitting at our kitchen island with her laptop. Aaron was there. She asked what the balance was. What did you say? I told her I needed to pull the latest statement. And Aaron? He said, it's fine, kiddo. Your mom has it. I felt my anger return. Not because the sentence was dramatic, because it placed the responsibility exactly where Aaron needed it. Rachel had legal custody of the account, her login, her name, her obligation. Whatever Aaron had done, she had become the visible adult between Sophie and the truth. What happened after that? I checked everything. You should have been checking everything every month. I know. What did you find? The additional withdrawals. The ones after your mother died. Yes. How did Aaron still have access after you changed the password? Rachel looked embarrassed. I changed it back. I stared at her. You changed it back? Not to the old one. Then how? We reconciled. That is not a banking term. I know. He said if we were going to stay married, I had to stop treating him like a criminal, and you decided shared passwords were proof of trust. Yes, I rubbed both hands over my face. Carol would have had language for that. Probably short language. Did you actually give him the new password? I saved it in our household password manager. So, yes. Yes. Was Sophie's account in there? Yes. What about the email used for authentication? Mine. Could he access it? On the home computer. I let out a long breath. This was not sophisticated fraud. That almost made it worse. Nobody had defeated bank security. A marriage with bad boundaries had turned passwords into communal property. What were the later withdrawals? Rachel marked them. 12,000, 8,000, 4,900. The last one was 6,000. Most went to the business. One went to their household checking. Did you authorize any after March? No. You're certain? Yes. Did you know about them when they happened? Not immediately. Notifications? I turned them off. I stared at her. Why? Because everyone caused a fight. That may be the worst reason you've given me tonight. I know. I looked at the transaction history again. Who had possession of the phone receiving account alerts? Me. But you turned them off. Yes. Who benefited from that? Aaron. And you. Rachel's face tightened. Yes. Because not knowing had become part of her system too. Aaron moved money. Rachel avoided the alerts. The business survived another week. The mortgage got paid. Sophie kept believing her college fund was intact. Everyone benefited from the silence until the silence itself became the largest debt. I pushed the statements aside. Now explain 18,750. Rachel opened her laptop. She showed me an engagement letter, Harrison and Pike. Initial legal retainer, $15,000. Separate forensic accounting deposit, $3,150. Total, $18,750. At least the amount was real. What are they supposed to do? Trace every transfer from Sophie's account. Determine what was repaid. Identify where the remaining money went. Advise me on my obligations as custodian and what steps protect Sophie. Protect you too. Rachel looked at me. Yes. From Aaron? Maybe. From Sophie? Her eyes filled. Yes. That was the first time she had said it. If she turns 18 and learns you allowed her money to be used, she could have claims against me. How serious? I don't know yet. Because the lawyers haven't finished. Yes. And rather than ask me for the retainer, you used your mother's login. Rachel closed the laptop. I knew you would ask why. That is traditionally how borrowing money works. I was afraid once I told you, you'd call Aaron. That may have been a reasonable fear. I was also afraid you'd tell Sophie. I sat back. That one hurt. You thought I couldn't be trusted with the truth. I thought you'd believe she deserved it. She does. I know. Then what exactly were you protecting? Rachel stared at the water glass. Time. For what? To know what I was telling her. I almost interrupted. She kept going. If I tell Sophie her father stole her college money and then discover half the transfers were authorized by me, I've lied to her again. That was fair. If I tell her the account is gone, it isn't gone. Also fair. If I tell her Aaron can replace it, I don't know that. There was the uncertainty. Rachel looked at me. I needed enough facts to stop making the next decision, based on whatever Aaron promised me that day. For the first time that evening, I understood why the law firm mattered beyond divorce. She had finally reached the point where she no longer trusted her own version of the story. What does Aaron think the balance is? He knows it's low. How low? I don't know. Does he know you downloaded the statements? Yes. Does he know you drove here? No. What did you tell him? That I was spending the night with you because we hadn't talked. That part is true. Mostly. I looked at her. No more mostly. She nodded. Then I asked the question that had been sitting underneath everything. Why did you say your mother knew what the 18,750 was for? Rachel became very still. She didn't know the amount. I know. She didn't know I would use your account. I know that too. But she used your savings once. I stared at her. What? Rachel opened the folder again. She transferred money into Sophie's account. When? January, before she got really sick. How much? 15,000. I shook my head. No. She did. I would remember $15,000 leaving my account. It came from the savings account. The same one? Yes. I stood and walked to the study. Rachel followed me. I logged into the newly secured bank profile. The older transactions were still there. January 9th, $15,000. Outgoing transfer. Recipient ending in 4412. Sophie's custodial account. Authorized user, Carol Walsh. I stared at the screen. Carol had made the transfer while she was alive. Legally, the savings account had been jointly ours. She had every right to move money. But she had never told me. Not once. I remembered January 9th for another reason. That evening, Carol and I had eaten tomato soup because chemotherapy had made almost everything else taste metallic. She had sat in the chair beside me with a blanket over her knees and asked whether I thought Sophie would still want to go to college near the ocean. I told her 17-year-olds change their minds every 6 days. Carol smiled. Nothing about that evening had suggested she had moved $15,000 out of our savings that morning. Why? I asked. Rachel was standing behind me. Aaron had taken the second withdrawal. The 18,000. Yes. 10 had already been repaid from the first one. Yes. So your mother put 15,000 in. She said it was temporary. Temporary until what? Until Aaron replaced the rest. I turned. Did she tell him? Yes. That surprised me. She confronted Aaron? At our house. When? 2 days after the transfer. You were there? Yes. What did she say? Rachel gave a sad little smile. That if he ever touched Sophie's account again, she would tell you everything. I look back at Carol's name on the transaction. The new information answered one question. Rachel had not invented the idea that Carol would use family money to protect Sophie's account. Carol had already done it, but it created another problem I had not expected. My wife had spent the last months of her life insisting our daughter needed to tell me the truth. At the same time, she had taken $15,000 from our joint savings to cover part of that truth before I ever knew there was a hole. And suddenly I was no longer investigating what Rachel and Aaron had hidden from me. I was trying to understand what Carol had hidden too. Rachel stood behind me while I kept staring at the January transfer. $15,000. Carol's name. Sophie's account. I had spent 13 months believing I knew the important financial decisions my wife made at the end of her life. Apparently, I knew most of them. Most had never bothered me before. That word did now. What happened when Carol confronted Aaron? Rachel sat in the chair beside the desk. She came down to Charlotte. When? January 11th. 2 days after the transfer. I remembered that trip. Carol had told me she wanted a day with Rachel and Sophie. I had offered to drive. She said no because I had a contractor coming to look at a drainage problem behind the garage. Rachel drove up that morning, picked her up, and brought her back the next evening. When Carol came home, she was exhausted. I heated soup. She slept almost 12 hours. What did she tell me that trip was about? Rachel looked ashamed. Seeing us? That part was true. Yes. What part wasn't? She came to talk to Aaron. I turned away from the computer. Where? Our house. Sophie there? At school. Tell me exactly what happened. Rachel rubbed both hands together. Mom put the Piedmont statements on the kitchen table. That sounded like Carol. She asked Aaron whether he had taken the money. What did he say? At first he said we had used it. We. Yes. And you corrected him? I did. Rachel looked down. He got angry. At you? Mostly scared. That isn't the same thing. No. She took a breath. He said the business would have failed if he hadn't covered payroll. What did Carol say? She asked whether Sophie was an employee. Despite everything, I almost smiled. That was Carol, too. What else? She told him the account was not his emergency line of credit. He said he knew. He clearly did not. He knew legally. Apparently legality was not the issue. Rachel nodded. Mom said she had put $15,000 back temporarily because she wasn't going to let Sophie discover the account short while we were arguing about what to do. Did she say where it came from? Our savings? Yes. Rachel looked at me carefully. She said she would tell you. When? After she knew whether Aaron was going to replace the rest. I felt anger rise. That is not what her email says. I know. Her email says tell David before anybody uses money in his name. She wrote that later. That mattered. Carol's position had changed. How much did Aaron owe at that point? $27,000 after repayments. Then your mother added 15. Yes. So the account looked almost whole. Closer. What was the agreement? Rachel stood and returned to the folder. She pulled out 3 printed pages. The first was an email from Aaron. The subject line was, Sophie account repayment dated January 12th. Aaron wrote that he acknowledged using $42,000 from Sophie's custodial assets during what he called temporary company cash flow emergencies. He listed previous repayments totaling $15,000. He promised to repay the remaining $27,000 from 2 expected commercial receivables. The first repayment deadline was February 15th. The second was March 31st. At the bottom, I understand no additional funds from Sophie's account are to be used for business or household purposes. I read that sentence twice. He wrote this after your mother confronted him. Yes. Did Carol make him? She asked him to put his promise in writing. Did he meet the first deadline? No. Second? No. How much did he repay before Carol died? Another $10,000? I did the arithmetic. That left 17. Before the later withdrawals. Yes. I put the page down. Carol had made a mistake. She had used our joint savings without telling me, but she had not treated the $15,000 as a gift to Aaron. She was filling part of a hole while forcing him to acknowledge the rest. Still secret. Still something I would have objected to. Different from simple concealment. Why didn't Carol tell me when he missed February 15th? Rachel's eyes filled. She was in the hospital, I remembered. 10 days, pneumonia, low oxygen, a discussion about whether continuing chemotherapy made sense. The dates had become medical dates in my memory. Apparently they had remained financial deadlines for Rachel. Did she ask you about it? Yes. What did you say? That Aaron had money coming. I stared at my daughter. You kept doing that. I know. Money coming. Yes. Payment coming. Yes. Repayment coming. Yes. And every time Sophie's actual money had already gone. Rachel wiped her face. Yes. I turned to the next paper. It was an email from Megan Harrison. Not to Carol. To Rachel. Dated March 4th. It said, given continued missed reimbursement deadlines and the prior unauthorized account activity, I strongly recommend that you stop treating this as an informal marital repayment issue. The next paragraph was more important. You should consider resigning as custodian and appointing an independent successor custodian so the funds are no longer subject to the same household access and pressure. I looked at Rachel. You never told me this. No. Who was supposed to become custodian? She did not answer. I already knew. Me. Rachel nodded. I sat very still. Say it. Mom wanted you. There are moments when one fact does not add information so much as rearrange everything that came before it. Carol had been hiding the problem from me. That was true. She had also been trying to move control of Sophie's money toward me, not away from me. Why me? Because you weren't in our household. That seems like a low qualification. Mom said you would make Aaron ask before touching anything. She was right. Rachel almost smiled, then stopped. She also said you'd understand account records. What did Harrison say? That I could designate a successor custodian properly if the account agreement and state law allowed it, and they would coordinate with Piedmont. Did they prepare something? Yes. Where is it? Rachel reached into the folder again. This time she took longer. The document was titled Designation of Successor Custodian and Notice of Resignation. It was never signed. Rachel's name appeared as current custodian. My name appeared as proposed successor, David Michael Walsh. My Tennessee address, phone number, even my date of birth. I looked at Rachel. How did they have this information? Mom gave it to them, without telling me. Yes. I looked at the signature line. Blank. Why didn't you sign? Rachel's eyes dropped. Aaron found out. How? He saw an email notification on our home computer. What did he see? Something from Harrison and Pike. Did he know what they were doing? Not at first. And then? He asked me until I told him. What did he say? Rachel looked toward Carol's old desk. He said if I gave control of Sophie's account to you, our marriage was over. I stared at her. That's why you didn't sign. Partly. What was the other part? I thought Mom was overreacting. I let the silence answer before I did. After 2 unauthorized withdrawals. I know. After $42,000 had moved. I know. After he missed the repayment deadline. I know. You still thought your mother was overreacting. I thought she hated seeing me scared. That is not overreacting. I know that now. I looked at the unsigned designation again. When did Carol learn you refused? March 6th. What did she say? Rachel swallowed. She was furious. With Aaron? With me. That surprised me less than it would have once. What did she say? That I was confusing staying married with staying safe financially. I leaned back. That sounds like her. She said if I wouldn't move the account, I had to tell you. Did you promise? Yes. Did you? No. What happened instead? Mom got worse. The answer was true. It was also convenient. Both could exist. Carol went back into the hospital March 18th. Home hospice began in early April. She died April 27th. There had been opportunities, not many. Enough. What happened to the successor document? I kept it. Did Aaron know my name was on it? Yes. That mattered. When did he know? March? So after March, Aaron knew your mother wanted me controlling Sophie's account. Yes. And he still took money later. Rachel looked at me. Yes. That was the midpoint. Until then, I had been treating the later withdrawals as a continuation of financial desperation. Aaron needed cash. Rachel enabled him. Carol died. The weak boundary got weaker. But this changed it. Aaron had not merely continued using an account he had convinced himself was temporarily available. He knew Carol had recognized the danger strongly enough to remove the account from Rachel's control. He knew a lawyer had become involved. He knew I was supposed to become the person standing between his business and Sophie's money. And once Carol died, the only person who could make that happen was Rachel. She did not. Did he ever ask what happened to this document after Carol died? Rachel hesitated. Yes. When? A few weeks after the funeral. What did you tell him? That I wasn't signing it. What did he say? He said good. One word. Good. I looked again at the dates of the later transfers. May, June, then August. All after Carol's death. All after Aaron knew the attempt to change custodians had died with her. Or rather, had died because Rachel let it. What changed after the funeral? I asked. Rachel's voice became quieter. Everything. That is too big an answer. I was tired. Everybody was. I was grieving. So was I. I know. Try again. She stared at the desk. Aaron started taking care of me. I waited. He handled food, Sophie's schedule, bills, people calling. That sounds normal for a husband. It was. What else? He kept saying Mom had never trusted him. Did she? Not at the end. Probably because he took $42,000 from his daughter. Rachel looked at me. I know. What did you believe? That if I signed that form after Mom died, I was choosing her judgment over my marriage. There it was. The account had become symbolic. Not just money. A loyalty test. Carol's plan meant admitting Carol had been right about Aaron. Refusing the plan meant Rachel could tell herself the marriage still had trust left. And then he took more. Yes. When did you realize? Not all at once. I tapped the later transactions. $12,000 in May. Yes. What did he tell you? That a subcontractor lien had to be cleared before a client would release payment. Did he tell you before taking it? No. $8,000 in June. Payroll tax deposit. Before? No. $4,900. Equipment lease. No permission. No. $6,000. Rachel stopped. That was the most recent withdrawal. What was that? I don't know. I looked at her. What do you mean you don't know? Aaron says it went to the business. And? I checked the business statements I could access. You couldn't find it? No. Household account? No. Credit cards? No. So $6,000 left Sophie's account and you do not know where it went? Yes. That was new uncertainty. Was that why you called Harrison and Pike again? Rachel nodded. The $6,000 was what finally scared me enough. I stared at her. Not 42. I know. Not your mother hiring a lawyer. I know. Not the unsigned successor form. I know. 6,000. Because it didn't fit. I stopped. That answer I understood. Numbers can be terrible for months and still become familiar. Then one number behaves differently. That is when a person finally notices the pattern may not mean what they assumed. You thought everything went into keeping the company alive. Yes. And this one didn't. I can't prove where it went. What does Aaron say? That it went to a vendor. Which vendor? He won't tell me. I looked at the engagement letter again. Forensic accounting deposit, $3,750. Now I understood why Rachel wanted someone outside the marriage tracing money, but I also understood something else. The law firm had not asked for my $18,750. They asked Rachel for a retainer. Rachel made the same kind of decision Aaron had made. She had a problem. She had access. She told herself replacing the money later would make the method less wrong. How were you planning to repay me? Rachel looked embarrassed. My year-end bonus. When? December. It's July. I know. So you plan to use my money for 5 months without asking me? Yes. Because you thought protecting Sophie justified it? Yes. I looked at the blank successor custodian form with my name on it, then at Carol's $15,000 transfer, then at Rachel. Three people in the same family had now used money that belonged partly or entirely to somebody else, while telling themselves they were protecting Sophie. Aaron took hers to save the business and house. Carol took ours to restore what Aaron removed. Rachel took mine to hire lawyers to recover hers. Different motives, different legal consequences, same dangerous habit. Use the money first, explain later. Carol had recognized that habit in Aaron. What she had not lived long enough to see was that fear was teaching Rachel the same one. I closed the folder. Tomorrow morning, you call Harrison and Pike. Rachel looked at me. I already hired them. You call them with me sitting beside you. Why? Because I want my money returned to the bank while your dispute is investigated. Her face changed. Dad, if they return the retainer, I lose the forensic accountant. Then you find another lawful way to pay. I don't have $18,000 Aaron can't see. That sounds like a problem you should have brought to me before stealing it. She flinched. I let the word remain. Then I said, after that, if you want to ask me for help, you ask. She looked at me. And you might say no. Yes. That frightened her. Good. Permission means nothing if the answer cannot be no. Rachel nodded slowly. All right. I looked once more at the document Carol had wanted her to sign. My name sat there as the person who was supposed to stop the account from being used. Instead, 13 months later, I had become the next account used without permission. And for the first time, I understood that whatever Aaron had started, the problem was no longer only what he had done to Sophie's money. It was what secrecy had taught the rest of us to become. The next morning, Rachel and I called Harrison and Pike from my kitchen. Megan Harrison joined by video because she wanted to see both of us before discussing the money. She was probably 50, with silver-framed glasses and the expression of someone who had spent years listening to families explain why rules should not apply to the particular emergency sitting in front of them. Rachel spoke first. The retainer came from my father's account without his permission. Megan looked at me. Mr. Walsh? That is correct. Did you authorize the transfer afterward? No. Do you intend to ratify it now? No. Rachel looked at me. I had warned her. Still hurt. Megan nodded. Then those funds need to be returned. How quickly? I asked. Our accounting department can coordinate with your bank today. Some work has already been performed, but because the source of funds is disputed and you did not authorize payment, I'm not comfortable applying your money to Rachel's matter. That was cleaner than I expected. What work? Initial review of statements, consultation, preservation instructions, and engagement of the forensic accountant. So you've already spent some. We have incurred fees. Rachel remains responsible for them under the engagements agreement. That is separate from whether your unauthorized funds should pay them. Rachel looked down. How much? Approximately $1,800 in legal time and the accountant's initial review fee. And if the retainer goes back, our ongoing work pauses unless another payment arrangement is made. There was the cost of doing things properly. Rachel asked, can you at least preserve what I already sent? Yes. We do not destroy client records because a retainer is returned. What about tracing the $6,000? The accountant will stop active analysis until funding is resolved. I asked. If I decide to help later, can I pay you directly? Megan looked at Rachel first. Only with Rachel's informed consent regarding a third-party payer, and only if everyone understands that payment does not give you control of the representation. That sounds reasonable. It also does not entitle you to confidential information unless Rachel authorizes disclosure. I understand, Rachel said. I'll authorize it. Megan raised one hand. Not because you're sitting in your father's kitchen and afraid he'll refuse to help. Rachel went quiet. Think about what you want shared. I liked Megan immediately. Then she said something I liked less. Rachel, I also need to be clear about your own exposure. Rachel stiffened. I know. I'm not sure you do. Megan looked at the camera. You were custodian of an account belonging to Sophie. Some transactions appear to have been initiated by Aaron without your authorization. Other transactions appear to have been authorized by you. I looked at Rachel. Appear, Megan continued. We have not completed the review, but Aaron's access does not automatically erase your obligations as custodian. Rachel's eyes filled. I understand. And if your position is that he acted without permission, we need to preserve evidence showing which transactions you objected to and when. I thought about Rachel turning off account notifications, changing passwords back, the household password manager. Evidence was going to tell an untidy story. What about Carol? I asked. Megan's expression softened. Your wife? You spoke with her before she died. Yes. Did she ever tell you I authorized family money to cover Sophie's account? No. Did she tell you to take money from me later if Rachel needed help? No. Rachel closed her eyes. I had not needed the answer. I needed it said where both of us could hear it. Megan continued. Carol was very clear that she wanted you informed. Rachel whispered. I know. She was also clear that she did not want Sophie's account treated as a revolving source of emergency funds. I know. Then from this point forward, no more informal solutions. Rachel nodded. No more moving money between accounts because you intend to replace it. No deleting alerts, no shared credentials. No relying on verbal promises that a business receivable will fix the problem. Rachel looked at me. I said nothing. Megan had already said what needed saying. By 11, Harrison and Pike had begun coordinating return of my $18,150. The law firm's work was paused. Rachel still needed representation, and I had not yet decided whether I would pay for it. She did not ask. That was new. Around noon, she walked onto the back porch with her phone. I could hear her speaking to Aaron through the screen door. No, I'm not coming home this afternoon. Pause. Because we need time. Another pause. No, my dad didn't talk me into anything. Longer silence. Then, yes, I hired a lawyer. I stopped pretending not to listen. Rachel's voice rose. Because the account is short. She moved farther across the porch. I could not hear Aaron's answer. Then Rachel said, You know exactly what account. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Aaron. I let it ring twice before answering. David. Aaron. Is Rachel there? Yes. I need to talk to you without her telling you what to think. That sentence almost made me laugh. She spent 20 years accusing me of doing that to her. I'm serious. So am I. He took a breath. She's making it sound like I stole Sophie's money. Did you move money from Sophie's account without Rachel's permission? Silence. Then, sometimes. That answer was more honest than I expected. How much? I don't know off the top of my head. That is not believable. Fine, 40, maybe 50,000 total over time. Total moved or total not returned? Moved. Did you have permission? Some of it. Which? You need to ask Rachel. I have. Then ask her about May. I looked toward the porch. What happened in May? She told me to use $12,000. Rachel had told me the May $12,000 transfer was unauthorized. Do you have proof? Yes. Send it. David, this is what she does. She gets scared after the fact and rewrites the decision. That sounded like a husband talking about a marriage, not a man inventing a defense in 5 seconds. Send the proof. He did. A screenshot arrived. Text thread, Rachel's name at the top. Date matched the May withdrawal. Aaron. Greenville still hasn't funded. I'm short $11,800 for payroll Monday. Rachel. I told you we're done touching Sophie's account. Aaron. Then I miss payroll and 3 guys walk. We have the receivable. It's supposed to hit Wednesday. 8 minutes passed. Rachel. If it is not in by tomorrow afternoon, use 12 and put it back the second Greenville pays. This is the last time. I mean it. I read it twice. Aaron was still talking. She knew. At least that time. More than that. How much more? Ask her. Stop outsourcing your answers. He went quiet. Then said, she authorized the household transfer too. The mortgage? Yes. She admitted that. And the $7,500. She admitted that too. She told you about May? No. Another pause. That figures. My anger shifted direction. Not away from Aaron. There was plenty left for him. But Rachel had looked me in the eye the night before and marked May as one of the transfers she did not authorize. That was not incomplete memory. That was a false answer. What about the $6,000? I asked. I told her what it was. Tell me. A vendor payment. Which vendor? I'm not discussing company finances with you. You discuss Sophie's finances with yourself. That's not fair. It is unusually fair. Aaron's voice hardened. You don't know what was happening. Then explain it. We were days from getting locked out of a job. What vendor? Blue Ridge Equipment. Send proof. I'm not sending you my company bank statements. Then Rachel's lawyer can ask. He became quiet. There it was. He knew now. Not just that Rachel was upset, that lawyers were involved. Is she filing for divorce? I don't know. Did you pay for the lawyer? No. Then how did she? I said nothing. Aaron understood the silence too quickly. What did she do? That is between Rachel and me. David. You have enough problems involving money that belongs to other people. He hung up. Rachel came inside 10 minutes later. I placed my phone on the table with the screenshot open. She saw it. Her face changed. I was going to tell you. No. Dad, you told me the May withdrawal was unauthorized. I didn't think of that text as permission. I stared at her. What did you think it was? Panic. That doesn't answer the question. She sat down. He kept pushing. And you said use 12. I said if the receivable didn't come. Did the condition happen? Yes. Then you authorized it. She began crying. I didn't want to. Permission given under pressure may still matter. Your lawyer can tell you exactly how much. I know. No, you knew last night. Rachel looked at the table. Yes. That one word damaged something. Not permanently, not yet. But I felt it. I told you to bring everything. I did. You brought the documents. Yes. You did not bring the truth about what they meant. She wiped her face. I was afraid you wouldn't help me. There it was again. Access first. Explanation afterward. If I only help you when you give me the version most likely to produce help, then I'm not helping you. I'm being managed. I'm sorry. I believe you are. My phone rang again. This time it was Sophie. Rachel saw the name. Her face drained. Don't! She's my granddaughter. Dad, please. I'm answering. I picked up. Hey, kiddo. Sophie did not say hello. Why are Mom and Dad fighting about my college account? I looked at Rachel. What did you hear? My dad said Mom hired a lawyer because she thinks he stole from me. Rachel covered her face. I kept my voice steady. Where are you? My room. Is your father there? Downstairs. Did he tell you this directly? No, they were yelling on speakerphone. Of course. Nobody had planned to tell Sophie. Secrecy simply failed before any of us were ready. Grandpa, did somebody take my college money? That was the question Rachel had been buying time to avoid. I could have softened it, could have said adults were reviewing the account, could have given her one more careful half-truth. Instead, I said, money was taken from the account that belongs to you. Sophie became completely quiet. By Dad? Some transactions appear to have been made by your father. Appear? Your mother authorized some too. Rachel looked up sharply. I held her eyes. No more, mostly. Sophie whispered, how much? I don't know the final number yet. That means you know a number. I closed my eyes. She was Carol's granddaughter. Yes. What is it? The account had around $95,000 when your grandmother was alive. Right now, it has about 53. I heard Sophie inhale. That doesn't mean 42,000 is permanently gone. Some money was moved and repaid. Some was moved again. Adults are sorting out what happened. Adults? Her voice broke. It's my money. Yes. So why was everybody sorting it out without me? I had no good answer. Rachel started crying beside me. Sophie heard. Mom's there? Yes. I don't want to talk to her. Rachel closed her eyes. That's okay, I said. No, it isn't. Sophie was crying, Mom. She knew? Some of it. For how long? I looked at my daughter. Grandpa? More than a year. The sound Sophie made was not anger. It was hurt, pure and simple.
My grandma knew too? Yes. And you? I found out yesterday. She became quiet again. Then she asked the question none of us had been preparing for. Can I see the statements? Rachel looked at me. For the first time since walking into my house, she did not tell me what answer would protect somebody. She only nodded. Yes, I told Sophie. You should see them. After we hung up, Rachel sat at my kitchen table and cried. I did not tell her it would be all right. It might be, eventually. But the setback was no longer that Harrison and Pike had lost their retainer or that Aaron knew lawyers were involved. The real setback was that the one person everyone claimed to be protecting had finally entered the story. And Sophie was old enough to understand that almost every adult she trusted had decided, at one point or another, that she was safer not knowing what they were doing with what belonged to her. That sentence stayed with me long after Rachel went to bed in the guest room. Almost every adult she trusted had decided, at one point or another, that she was safer not knowing what they were doing with what belonged to her. I included myself in that now. I had only known for 2 days. Still, when Sophie asked,
My first instinct had been to measure how much truth she could handle, rather than whether the truth was hers to know. That distinction bothered me. At 6 the next morning, I found Rachel already awake at the kitchen table. She had Carol's green mug between both hands. No coffee in it, just the mug. "You sleep?" "Not really. Me neither." She looked toward the hallway. "Do you think Sophie hates me?" "That is not a useful question." "It feels useful. What would the answer change?" Rachel's eyes filled. "Nothing?" "Then ask a different one." She stared at the empty mug. "What do I do today?" That was better. "Tell her what you know." "All of it?" "All of what you actually know." "What about the things the forensic accountant hasn't figured out?" "Say you don't know." She shook her head. "That sounds so easy when you say it. It isn't." "What if Aaron tells her something different?" "He probably will." "What if his version makes me look worse?" I looked at her. "That may happen." She gave a tired laugh. "You're not very comforting." "Your mother was better at that." "Yes." For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then I said, "Before Sophie sees anything, we need to correct one thing." Rachel looked at me. "The May transfer." Her face tightened. "You told me you didn't authorize it." "I know. You did." "Yes. If Sophie asks, you tell her." "I will." "And if there are others?" Rachel looked away. That was enough. "How many?" "I don't know." "You keep using that phrase." "Because I don't know which conversations count as permission." I leaned back. "Then that is what we need to look at." Megan Harrison had told Rachel to preserve text messages. So we did something unpleasant and very ordinary. We opened her phone, not to search for a villain, to rebuild a timeline. Rachel had years of messages with Aaron. Most had nothing to do with money, groceries, Sophie's soccer practices, dentist appointments, pictures of leaking faucets, arguments about whose turn it was to buy dog food. That helped. People do not become different species because they mishandle money. They still send pictures of dinner. They still remind each other to pick up prescriptions. They still say love you after arguments they have not actually resolved. We searched the word Sophie. Too many results. Then Piedmont, then payroll, then dollar amounts. The first unauthorized withdrawal looked exactly as Rachel described. She confronted Aaron. He apologized, promised repayment. The second was worse. He admitted doing it before she discovered it. Again she objected. Again he promised. Then came January. Carol's intervention. The written repayment schedule, the lawyer, the unsigned successor custodian form. After that, I expected Rachel's messages to become firmer. For a while they did. "Do not touch that account again. I mean it. Mom talked to a lawyer. This cannot happen again." Then Carol went into the hospital. The messages changed. Not suddenly, gradually. Aaron wrote, "I'm trying to keep everything running while you're with your mom." Rachel, "I know." Aaron, "I'm not asking you for anything." Rachel, "Good." 2 days later, "Supplier is threatening to stop delivery." Rachel did not answer for 3 hours. Then, "I can't deal with this today." Aaron, "I know. I'll figure it out." Nothing about Sophie. Nothing about the account. But after Carol died, a different pattern appeared. A week after the funeral, Aaron sent, "Your dad okay?" Rachel, "No. He keeps saying he is." Aaron, "Does he know about the account yet?" Rachel did not answer for 14 minutes. Then, "No." Aaron, "Maybe don't tell him right now. He has enough." Rachel, "Mom wanted him told." Aaron, "Your mom also put 15 back herself." I stopped. Rachel did too. We read the next line together. She understood this was temporary. I looked at my daughter. "You saw that?" "Yes." "What did you think when he said it?" "I don't remember." "Try." Rachel closed her eyes. "I think part of me wanted it to be true." That was honest. The next message came from her. She was trying to protect Sophie, not the company. Aaron, "Same difference if the company failing blows up Sophie's whole life." Rachel had replied, "No." 1 word. Then nothing. I kept scrolling. 3 weeks later came a mortgage problem. Aaron said their checking account was short. Rachel authorized the $2,300. She had admitted that. Then the $7,500 business transfer, also admitted. Then May. The $12,000 she initially denied authorizing. But there was more after the screenshot Aaron had sent me. 2 days after that transfer, Rachel wrote, "I feel sick about doing this again. Aaron, it'll be back when Greenville pays." Rachel, "Mom would kill me." Aaron, your mom already did exactly what we're doing. She moved money to keep Sophie whole until things stabilized. Rachel had replied, Dad didn't know. Aaron, and did that make what Carol did wrong? There was a 12-minute gap. Rachel's answer, I don't know anymore. I sat very still. That was the deeper truth. Not legal truth, not moral truth. The story they had begun telling themselves. Carol's $15,000 transfer had changed meaning after she died. While she was alive, it had been a temporary repair, paired with a demand that the withdrawals stop and that I be told. After her death, Aaron turned the transfer into precedent. Carol used family money. Carol understood emergencies. Carol protected Sophie. Therefore, using Sophie's money temporarily to protect the family was not really stealing from Sophie. And Rachel, grieving and frightened and wanting her marriage to survive, had slowly accepted enough of that logic to participate. You knew Mom's condition, I said. Rachel looked at me. What condition? That it stopped. She began crying. I know. She put $15,000 in because she thought Aaron was replacing the rest. I know. She wanted me as maid custodian. I know. She wanted me told. I know. But every time Aaron said, your mother understood, you let the first half of the story erase the second. Rachel covered her face. Yes. I wanted to be angry. I was. But there was something almost unbearable about watching my daughter finally understand how she had used her mother's memory. Carol had become an argument nobody could cross-examine. Aaron could say Carol understood the business emergency. Rachel could say Carol wanted Sophie protected. I could say Carol wanted me told. All three statements contained truth. Only one of us was still alive to decide which part mattered. At 9:15, Sophie called. Rachel answered this time. She put the phone on speaker only after asking permission. Sophie's voice sounded flat. Did you send the statements? Yes. I looked at them. Rachel swallowed. Okay. There are 7 withdrawals. Yes. You told Grandpa some were Dad and some were you. Yes. How many were you? Rachel looked at me. I said nothing. I directly authorized 3. I noticed the word directly. So did Sophie. What does directly mean? Rachel closed her eyes. There are others where your dad asked and I resisted and then eventually agreed. How many? I'm still going through the messages. That sounds like you don't want to answer. No. It sounds like I gave permission in ways I spent a long time pretending weren't permission. Silence. Then Sophie said, Why? Rachel started crying. Because your dad's business was in trouble. That isn't my business. No. Did you think the money was yours? No. Then why use it? Rachel looked at Carol's empty chair. Because I kept telling myself it was temporary. Sophie did not respond. Rachel continued. I told myself protecting the house protected you. Protecting your dad's company protected you. Avoiding a huge fight protected you. Did it? No. Another silence. Then Sophie asked, Did Grandma use the account too? Rachel looked at me. I answered, No. Your grandmother put money into your account. From yours? From the savings account she and I shared. Did you know? Not until yesterday. Why would she do that without telling you? There was no clean answer. Because she found out money had been taken from your account and wanted part of it restored while your parents sorted out repayment. So Grandma used your money without asking. Yes, Rachel whispered. She was going to tell him. Sophie's voice sharpened. But she didn't. No, I said. She died before she did. That sentence sat there. Sophie asked, Was she okay with Mom and Dad using my money? No. That answer I could give without qualification. She wanted it stopped. How do you know? Emails, a repayment agreement. She helped your mother talk to a lawyer. Sophie was quiet. Then she said, Can I see those too? Rachel closed her eyes. Yes, that was the right answer. Sophie continued. I found something else. What? Rachel asked. The balance from last September. Rachel froze. What balance? I saw a statement on the printer. I looked at my daughter. Sophie said, It said 61,000 something. Rachel's face lost color. I asked you why it was lower than what you told me. I remember. What did you say? Rachel started crying. That some investments had moved around. You said the market was down. Yes. Was that true? Not enough to explain the difference. So you lied. Yes. That was the betrayal Sophie cared about. Not banking access, not custodial rules, not whether a transfer was technically authorized. She had noticed the missing money months earlier, and her mother had looked at her and given her an explanation designed to make her stop asking. Sophie's voice broke. I was applying to schools based on that money. I know. You told me I could apply anywhere. I know. Dad said we were fine. I know. You both knew we weren't. Rachel could barely speak. Yes. I looked away. That hurt more than the $76,000. Money could be repaid. A 17-year-old choosing her future based on a balance her parents knew was false was something else. Sophie said, I need to go. Rachel whispered, I love you. There was a pause. I know. Then Sophie hung up. Rachel sat completely still. I did not touch her. After a minute she said, she didn't say it back. No. I deserve that. Don't turn her anger into your punishment. Rachel looked at me. What? If you make this about what you deserve, she'll eventually have to comfort you. That stopped her. She gets to be angry without fixing what the anger does to you. Rachel nodded slowly. My phone buzzed. A message from Aaron. One photograph. A Blue Ridge equipment invoice for $6,000, marked paid. Attached beneath it was a business credit card statement showing the same amount charged 2 days before the withdrawal from Sophie's account. Then a transfer from the business account reimbursing the card after Sophie's money arrived. The mysterious $6,000 had gone exactly where Aaron said. No secret lover, no hidden personal account, no second conspiracy. Just another business bill. That should have simplified things. It didn't. It made the truth uglier in a more ordinary way. Aaron had not been secretly spending Sophie's money on some private life. He and Rachel had spent it on the life they already had. Payroll, taxes, mortgage, equipment, keeping the company open, keeping the house current, keeping the family looking stable. The money had not vanished because one person stopped loving Sophie. It vanished because two parents kept deciding that every immediate family emergency was more urgent than the future their daughter could not yet see. And Carol's mistake had given them one more story to tell themselves while they did it. I looked at Rachel. The $6,000 was business. She nodded. Does that make you feel better? No. Me neither. Because by then I understood the original mystery was almost the least important part. My dead wife had not reached out from a bank account. My daughter had used Carol's profile because secrecy had become a family tool, and Carol's memory had become the permission everybody borrowed when they needed to do one more thing without asking. The money could still be traced. Some could probably be repaid. What I did not yet know was whether Sophie would ever believe that the adults who said they were protecting her understood the difference between protecting her life and taking ownership of it. What I did not yet know was whether Sophie would ever believe that the adults who said they were protecting her understood the difference between protecting her life and taking ownership of it. That afternoon, she answered none of our calls. Rachel tried twice. I tried once, then I stopped. At 5:30, Sophie sent me a text. I'm safe. I'm at Emma's house. I don't want Mom or Dad coming here. Emma was a girl from her school I had met twice. I called Sophie. She declined the call and immediately texted, I said I'm safe. Please don't make this into another thing adults decide for me. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I wrote, understood. Text me if you need anything, nothing else. Rachel stood at the kitchen counter watching me. What did she say? That she's safe. Where? She asked me not to turn it into something adults control. Rachel understood. She looked away. At 6:15, Aaron called her. The argument lasted 20 minutes. I stayed in the living room. I could hear enough. Aaron wanted Sophie home. Rachel said no. Aaron said she was 17. Rachel said exactly. Aaron accused her of letting me interfere. Rachel said, Dad is the only person in this family who didn't know we were using her money. That ended the loud part. A few minutes later, she came into the living room. He says I'm poisoning Sophie against him. Are you? No. Then don't defend yourself to me. She sat down. He wants to come here. No. You don't get to decide that. It's my house. She almost smiled. Right. That evening, Megan Harrison called. Rachel had authorized her to speak with me about the history involving Carol and the custodial account. Not everything about Rachel's marriage, only the account and the earlier consultation. Megan said, There's something in our old file I think both of you should review. Rachel looked at the speakerphone. What? Email correspondence from the week before Carol entered hospice. Rachel went still. I thought I sent everything. You sent the messages from Carol's account that you had. Our file includes messages sent directly to us. I felt my stomach tighten. From Carol? One from Carol, two from Rachel. Rachel closed her eyes. Megan continued. I don't want to read private correspondence over the phone without confirming what Rachel is comfortable disclosing. Rachel whispered, Send it. Are you sure? Yes. The email arrived less than a minute later. I opened it on my laptop. The first message was from Carol to Megan, April 3rd, 24 days before she died. Rachel says the account is secured now, and Aaron no longer has access. She says she is completing the custodian change. I have told her David needs to know, but she wants to wait until I am home and stronger. I do not like waiting, but I am too tired to keep fighting with her about it. I looked at Rachel. She stared at the table. Was the account secured? I had changed the password. For how long? A few weeks. That is not the same as changing custodians. I know. What did you tell your mother? That I was handling it. I looked back at the email. Carol had believed the successor change was being completed, but the form I had seen was unsigned. The next message was from Rachel to Megan, April 5th. Mom is getting worse, and I don't want this becoming the last thing she worries about. Please pause anything that requires her involvement. I will handle the account change after she gets home. Megan replied, The change does not require Carol's involvement. It requires your execution as current custodian and coordination with the financial institution. If you are unwilling to proceed, please say so clearly. Rachel's reply came 3 hours later. I'm not refusing. I just need a few days. I looked at the date. Carol entered hospice at home April 7th. A few days became the rest of her life. Megan said over the phone, We followed up twice. Did Rachel answer? Yes. The next message was April 12th. Rachel wrote, Everything is calm right now. Aaron understands the account is off limits. I'm not moving custodianship while Mom is dying. I can't handle another fight in my house. Megan's response was short. Then understand that the risk remains with you as custodian. No ambiguity, no legal fog. Rachel had known. The transfer of control to me had not died because Carol became too sick. It died because Rachel decided not to sign. I asked, Did Carol know? Megan was quiet. Know what? That Rachel stopped the custodian change. I cannot tell from our file that Carol was ever told that directly. Rachel began crying. I looked at her. Did you tell her? No. The answer barely came out. What did she think? That I was still doing it. I leaned back. There was the deeper truth. Carol spent part of her final month believing the central problem had been contained. Not solved. Contained. Aaron no longer had access. Rachel was moving Sophie's account away from the household. I would become successor custodian. That was why Carol's later emails stopped sounding as urgent about the account itself and became more urgent about telling me. She believed the money was no longer moving. She was wrong. Not because Aaron had already broken through some secure wall, because the wall was never built. Why let her believe it? I asked. Rachel wiped her face. Because she was dying. That is what happened. Not why you lied. I didn't want her spending her last weeks terrified about us. So you gave her a false answer. Yes. Did Aaron know she thought the account was being transferred? Rachel hesitated. Yes. That answer hurt differently. What did he say? He said if it kept Mom calm, let her think it was handled. I looked away. That was not theft. It was something more personal. Carol had used the energy she had left trying to protect her granddaughter. Rachel and Aaron decided the kindest thing was to let her believe they had followed through. Then she died, and the promise died with her. Megan remained on the line. There is another practical issue we need to address now. I almost laughed. Good. Sophie is still a minor. Someone still has legal responsibility for the account. Rachel said, I want to resign. I looked at her. That was the first time she had said it without anyone pushing. Megan asked, Are you certain? Yes. You understand resignation does not erase responsibility for prior transactions. Yes. You understand the successor custodian must accept. Rachel looked at me. I hated how familiar the old document suddenly felt. My name had been sitting on that form for more than a year. Carol chose it. Rachel resisted it. Aaron feared it. I did not know it existed. Now everyone was looking at me as though the obvious ending was for Grandpa to take control. I had learned enough to distrust obvious endings. I'll consider it, I said. Rachel looked surprised. Dad, I said consider. But Sophie needs, I raised my hand. No, she stopped. If I become custodian, it will be because I understand the responsibility and Sophie is comfortable with it. Not because your mother wanted it, not because you feel guilty, and not because Aaron hates the idea. Megan said, that is the correct approach. Rachel leaned back. I thought you'd say yes immediately. So did I. That was my mistake coming into focus. For most of my life, when Rachel had a problem, I treated solving it quickly as evidence I loved her. Carol had spent years telling me to stop doing that. When Aaron's business first struggled 6 years earlier, I loaned them $12,000. No formal note, no interest. I called it temporary. Aaron repaid every dollar over 11 months. Because he repaid it, I turned the whole episode into proof that helping fast had been right. Maybe that was one reason Rachel learned family money could move first and be explained later. Maybe that was one reason Aaron believed temporary was a moral category rather than a time description. Not because I taught him to take Sophie's money. I did not. But I had participated in a family habit where immediate rescue was often treated as more loving than uncomfortable delay. I need Sophie involved, I said. Rachel nodded. Me too. That evening Sophie finally called. Not me. Megan. I learned later that she had found the firm's number on the engagement letter Rachel sent with the account documents. Megan could not represent Sophie automatically just because she represented Rachel. So she arranged a short call with Sophie and explained that she might eventually need independent advice from another attorney if her interests diverged from her mother's. That phrase frightened Rachel. Diverged from mine? Megan said. Rachel, you are the custodian whose decisions are under review. The truth was becoming less comfortable as it became more precise. The next afternoon, Sophie agreed to a video call with me and Rachel. Aaron was not included, not because we were declaring him guilty, because Sophie did not want to speak with both parents together. She appeared on my laptop from Emma's bedroom, hair tied back, oversized sweatshirt, no makeup. She looked younger than 17 until she spoke. I want Grandpa to handle the account. Rachel closed her eyes. I said, you don't have to decide that today. I already did. Why? Because he won't use it. That answer should have felt like a compliment. It didn't. You know I made some of the contributions. Yes. That doesn't make me owner. I know. You know your grandmother wanted me to be custodian. Yes. That doesn't mean she gets the final vote either. Sophie frowned. She's dead. I'm aware. For the first time in days, the corner of her mouth moved. Then I said, I want you to understand what the job is before you decide who you trust to do it. Rachel whispered, Dad, she wants you. I heard her. Sophie looked between us through the screen, then said, Mom, stop helping me answer. Rachel went still. That one landed. Okay. Sophie looked back at me. What do you need? Time for Megan to explain the responsibilities. Copies of the account agreement. A clean balance. And I want to know exactly what authority I'd have and what I wouldn't. That sounds very Grandpa. Unfortunately, she nodded. Fine. Then she asked Rachel, will you sign whatever you need to sign? Yes. No delays? No. No Dad gets upset so you change your mind? Rachel began crying. No. Sophie watched her. For once, she did not rush to comfort her mother. I was glad. After the call, Rachel sat quietly. Then she said, she doesn't trust me. No. That hurts. It should. Rachel nodded. No argument. 2 days later, Megan sent the formal documents for review. Not signature. Review. We scheduled a call with Piedmont. We verified the current balance. We requested a complete transaction history going back 3 years. No one moved a dollar. Not yet. That was the first truly different thing any of us had done. We stopped. We checked. We let facts arrive before action. And while we waited, Megan sent one additional message from Carol's old file. It was not addressed to me. It was a note Carol had sent Rachel after the unsigned custodian form was prepared. Only one paragraph. I am trusting you to fix this the right way, not the easy way. David will be angry when he learns we waited, but he will help if you tell him the whole truth. Please do not make me die, worrying that you are still protecting Aaron from consequences he chose. I read it alone in my study. Then again, Carol had understood Rachel's real struggle before I did. Not money, not even marriage, consequences. Rachel had spent more than a year trying to build a version of reality where Aaron could make desperate choices without becoming the man who made them, where she could authorize some withdrawals without becoming the custodian who failed Sophie, where Carol could cover a shortfall without admitting she had kept something from me, where I could remain the father who would help without being told anything that might make me refuse. Everybody wanted the rescue. Nobody wanted the identity that came with needing it. I folded the printed email and placed it beside Carol's photograph. For the first time, I understood why my wife's final warning had not been about money being lost. Money can be repaid. She was afraid our daughter would keep protecting Aaron from consequences until she no longer recognized how many of those consequences had become hers. She was afraid our daughter would keep protecting Aaron from consequences until she no longer recognized how many of those consequences had become hers. The next morning, I drove to Charlotte. Rachel followed in her own car. I did not want 4 hours together while both of us were angry enough to turn every highway exit into another argument. Sophie agreed to meet us at Harrison and Pike. She would not meet at her parents' house. She would not ride with Rachel. Emma's mother dropped her off at 10:40. Sophie walked into the conference room carrying a backpack and sat beside me, not beside her mother. Rachel noticed. She said nothing. Megan came in with a thin folder and closed the door. I want to make one thing clear before we start. I represent Rachel. I do not represent Sophie, and I do not represent Mr. Walsh. Sophie nodded. If this becomes a dispute where your interests differ from your mother's, you may need your own lawyer. Can Grandpa pay for one? Megan glanced at me. He potentially can, as long as the arrangement is handled properly and everyone understands payment does not give him control over that lawyer. Sophie looked at me. You okay with that? Yes, Rachel whispered. I can pay. Sophie turned toward her. With what? Rachel stopped. The question was cruel only because the facts underneath it were. Megan opened the folder. I also want to correct something before we review the account history. The number of withdrawals discussed so far is not reliable. Rachel looked confused. I printed everything. You printed everything you categorized as relevant. The forensic accountant began normalizing transfers, reversals, repayments, and movements between accounts before work paused. I understood immediately. You don't count a transfer out and a transfer back 5 days later the same way you count money that never returned. Correct. So 7 withdrawals was Rachel's description. Yes, not an audited count. Correct. Sophie looked at her mother. You don't even know how many times you used it. Rachel's voice was quiet. No. That was a better answer than pretending. Megan handed Sophie copies of the old Harrison and Pike correspondence, the January emails, Aaron's repayment promise, the unsigned successor custodian form with my name on it, Carol's April messages. Sophie read slowly. When she reached the form naming me, she looked over. Grandma picked you. She suggested me. She put your name on it. She and the lawyer did. Did you know? No. Sophie returned to the papers. Then she reached Carol's April 3rd message. David does not know yet. A few pages later came Carol's belief that Rachel was completing the transfer of custodianship. Sophie read that one twice. Then she looked at Rachel. Did Grandma die thinking Grandpa still didn't know? Rachel did not answer. I felt something tighten in my chest. Rachel. She stared at the conference table. Megan looked at her. This is not in our file. Rachel shook her head. No. What isn't? I asked. Rachel's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Sophie said, Mom. Rachel began crying. I told her he knew. I did not understand the sentence at first. What? Rachel looked at me. I told Mom you knew. When? About a week before she died. My hands went cold. You told Carol I knew about Sophie's account? Yes. I stared at her. Why? She kept asking. Asking what? If I had told you. And you said yes. Rachel covered her face. Yes. Megan remained completely still. Sophie asked, Did Grandma ask what Grandpa said? Rachel lowered her hands. Yes. What did you tell her? Rachel looked at me. I said Dad was angry, but he understood. I felt as though someone had removed the air from the room. I never had that conversation. I know. What else did you tell her? That you would take over the account after things settled down. I stood. Not dramatically, I simply could not stay seated. You told my dying wife that I had agreed to something I did not even know existed. Rachel was sobbing now. Yes. Why? Because she wouldn't let it go. That is not a reason. She was scared. So you lied. Yes. She was dying. I know. She had spent weeks telling you to tell me the truth. I know. And instead of telling me, you told her you already had. Yes. I walked to the window. Charlotte traffic moved far below us, people changing lanes, a delivery truck waiting at a light. Ordinary life continuing while I tried to understand which conversations with my wife had actually belonged to me. Sophie's voice came from behind me. What did Grandma say when you told her? Rachel took a long time. She said, good. One word. Good, Rachel continued. She said she was sorry you had to deal with it while she was sick. I closed my eyes. There are betrayals involving money that can be measured. You can total withdrawals, add interest, trace transfers. This one had no number. Carol spent part of her final week believing I knew our granddaughter's money had been taken, believing I knew she had moved $15,000 from our savings, believing I knew she had tried to put me in control of Sophie's account, and believing I had agreed to help. She had apparently carried relief into her last days based on a conversation with me that never happened. What day? I asked. Rachel whispered, April 20th. 7 days before Carol died, I remembered April 20th. Not every minute. Enough. Carol had been in the hospital bed we rented for the den because she hated being upstairs, where she could not hear the house. That afternoon, she had been unusually clear. We watched half an episode of an old British mystery series before she fell asleep. Later, she woke and asked me whether Rachel had taken care of things. I thought she meant hospice paperwork. Rachel had been helping with medication deliveries and insurance calls. I said, she always does. Carol smiled. Then she said something I had not understood. She gets that from you. At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Standing in Megan's office 13 months later, I realized Carol might have been talking about Sophie's account. Maybe not. I would never know. That was what Rachel had taken from me. Not money, the ability to ask. I turned back toward my daughter. Did she ever try to talk to me about it after you lied? No. How do you know? I was there most of that week. You weren't there every minute. No. Maybe she tried. Maybe. I hated the word. Sophie said, Mom, did Dad know you lied to Grandma? Rachel wiped her face. Yes. I looked at her. That made it worse again. When? The same day. What did he say? He said not to upset her by correcting it. I felt anger return, not because Aaron had invented the lie. He had not. Rachel had. But once again, when truth became inconvenient, he accepted the version that kept the room calmer. Sophie's face changed. So both of you just let Grandma die thinking Grandpa knew? Rachel could barely speak. Yes. Sophie pushed her chair away from the table. For a second, I thought she would leave. Instead, she stood beside the wall. I don't understand you. Rachel looked at her. I know. No, stop saying that. Rachel became silent. You keep saying you were protecting people. Sophie's voice shook. You protected Dad from Grandpa. You protected Grandpa from knowing. You protected Grandma from worrying. You protected me from the account balance. She wiped her eyes angrily. Did anybody ask us? No one answered. That was the deepest betrayal in the whole mess. Not that Rachel had chosen Aaron over me, not even that she had chosen her marriage over the account. She had appointed herself the person who decided which truths everyone else was strong enough to receive. Carol, me, Sophie. Sometimes Aaron too. And every time she protected one person from a fact, another person lost the right to respond to it honestly. Megan suggested a break. I went downstairs alone. There was a coffee shop in the lobby. I bought coffee and carried it outside without drinking it. I sat on a concrete planter beside the parking garage. For several minutes, I was furious at Rachel, then Carol, then Aaron, then myself. The last one surprised me. Rachel had told Carol I would be angry. She had been right. She had told Carol I would confront Aaron, probably right again. At Christmas, one worried expression from Rachel had been enough for me to push until the whole family left early. Carol had spent decades telling me that noticing a problem did not give me the right to demand the answer on my schedule. I had learned the observation part. I had been slower learning the restraint. That did not justify Rachel's lie, but if I wanted to understand why my wife and daughter repeatedly delayed telling me difficult things, I could not pretend my reaction had never been part of the calculation. I had confused being dependable with being the person who should be called first. Sometimes those are not the same thing. My phone buzzed. Sophie, can you come back up? I returned. Rachel was in the restroom. Sophie sat with Megan. She looked exhausted. I want Mom off the account. I understand. And Dad can't touch it. I agree. I want you to take it. I sat beside her. I'm willing if the paperwork and your independent advice say that's sensible. She frowned. Why do you keep saying that? Because everybody in this family keeps using urgency to skip steps. That landed. She nodded. Okay, Megan said. There is another option. A qualified independent custodian could potentially be considered depending on the account terms and applicable law. Sophie looked at me. Do you not want it? This is not about wanting it. Would Grandma have picked you if she didn't trust you? Your grandmother trusted me. She also moved $15,000 without telling me. Sophie looked down. People we love can make mistakes while loving us. That sentence applied to too many people in the room. Rachel returned. Her eyes were swollen. She sat farther from Sophie than before. I said, Here is what I'm willing to do. Both of them looked at me. I will pay for the forensic accounting. Rachel opened her mouth. I raised a hand. From my account, directly, with paperwork. She nodded. I will also pay for Sophie to get independent legal advice if that becomes necessary. Sophie asked, Do I have to pay you back? No. Why is that different from replacing the missing money? Because I am choosing to spend my money to find out what happened and protect your options. I looked at Rachel. I am not replacing the account balance. Her face tightened. Dad, no. What if college deposits are due? Then we deal with actual college costs when they exist. What if Sophie loses an opportunity? Then we find a lawful way to help her with that specific opportunity. Rachel looked frightened. She understood what I was refusing. The family rescue, a check large enough to make the account look whole before anyone had to sit with what happened. I continued. I will not put $40,000 or $50,000 into Sophie's account, so Aaron can promise to repay me instead of her. Rachel nodded slowly. And I will not pay to make this disappear before Sophie understands the facts. Sophie looked at me. Good. That one word reminded me of Carol. But this time, it came after the truth, not instead of it. Megan said she would arrange the accounting engagement properly and begin the process of Rachel's resignation as custodian. Nothing would be signed that afternoon. Nothing would be moved. For once, urgency would not become authority. Before we left, Rachel stopped me in the hallway. Dad. I turned. I'm sorry about Mom. I looked at her. That is going to take me time. I know. She caught herself, then said, Okay. That was better. I walked to the elevator alone. I had spent days trying to learn where the money went. By then, I understood the more important thing I needed to protect was not the balance on Sophie's statement. It was the family's right to receive the truth before somebody else decided what they were allowed to do with it. And if I was going to help repair what happened, I was not going to use my money the way the rest of us had been using silence. I would pay to uncover the consequences. I would not pay to erase them. I would not pay to erase them. That decision lasted less than 24 hours before somebody asked me to reconsider it. Not Rachel, Aaron. He called at 8:12 the next morning. I want to meet. About what? You know what? I know several things now. About Sophie's account. Then say Sophie's account. He exhaled. Fine. Sophie's account. Where? Your house. No. David. I'm not having this conversation in the house Carol died in while you explain why taking your daughter's money was necessary. Silence. Then he said, Where? We agreed on a diner outside Hickory, roughly halfway between Knoxville and Charlotte. I arrived first. Aaron came in 15 minutes late, wearing jeans and a Vaughn Commercial Renovations polo shirt. He looked older than he had at Christmas, not guilty, tired. There is a difference, though sometimes both live in the same face. He sat across from me. You think I stole from Sophie. I think you repeatedly moved money belonging to Sophie into your business and household accounts. That isn't what I asked. I'm 70. I've stopped answering questions people ask only because they dislike the accurate wording. He looked toward the window. I always intended to put it back. I believe you. That surprised him. You do? Yes. Then why are we treating this like I robbed her? Because intending to replace money does not make it yours while it's gone. He rubbed his face. The company had 82 employees at its peak. I know. People with kids, mortgages, health insurance. I know what employees are. 2 projects stopped paying within 6 weeks. I know that too. No, you know the summary. He leaned forward. I had crews in 3 states, subcontractors threatening liens, suppliers putting us on credit hold. One owner owed us $240,000 and kept approving work while refusing to release payment. That sounds like a business problem. It was. Not Sophie's. His jaw tightened. No. That answer came quietly. I waited. He continued. The first time, I honestly believed it would be 3 days. $24,000. Yes. You did it without Rachel's permission. Yes. Why not ask me? His expression changed. Because I didn't want another loan from you. That stopped me. What does that mean? You helped us before. 12,000. I remember. You repaid it. I remember that too. Then why was asking worse than taking Sophie's money? Because asking you meant admitting the company might fail. And taking hers didn't? At the time, he looked ashamed. At the time, it felt private. There was the answer. Not easier financially, easier emotionally. I would have asked questions, Sophie would not. Not because she agreed, because she did not know. Aaron stared at the tabletop. With you, I would have had to explain payroll, receivables, the bank line, everything. With the account, I could fix it before anybody knew there was anything to explain. That sentence should bother you. It does now. What about the second withdrawal? I was already behind, and after Carol confronted you, he closed his eyes. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. No. Why? He looked at me. Because the money she put back changed the math in my head. I did not speak. She put 15,000 in. I know. I knew it was your joint savings. I knew she was furious with me. But some part of me saw the account almost restored and thought we had time again. I felt anger rise. Carol's money bought you breathing room. Yes. And you used the breathing room to repeat the behavior. Yes. That was more honest than I expected. What about telling Rachel that Carol understood temporary use? Aaron looked away. I said that. You knew it wasn't the whole truth. Yes. You knew Carol wanted me told. Yes. You knew she wanted me as custodian. Yes. And after she died, he pressed his lips together. I was relieved Rachel didn't sign. There it was. Not because he wanted Sophie harmed, because my presence would have closed the door. You knew what would happen if I controlled the account. You'd say no. Yes. Every time. Yes. He gave a tired little laugh. That was exactly the problem. No, Aaron, that was exactly the safeguard. He nodded. For once, he did not argue. I pulled out the transaction summary Megan had allowed Rachel to share. Which transfers did Rachel authorize? He looked at it. More than she told you. I already know about May. He nodded. The household transfer, the $7,500, 12 in May. Anything else? He hesitated. June, 8,000? Yes. I felt my stomach tighten. How? She didn't send a message saying use 8. Then what did she say? We were talking in the kitchen. I told her payroll taxes were due. She said she didn't want to know how I fixed it. I stared at him. That is not the same as authorization. I know. Did you treat it as authorization? Yes. Convenient? Yes. Again, no defense. What about the 4,900? No permission? 6. No permission. So even using your version, you knowingly crossed the line after Rachel had sometimes agreed and sometimes refused. Yes. Why? He looked out the window. Because by then I had stopped thinking of each transfer as a new decision. That answer bothered me more than an excuse would have. It had become a source. He nodded. A backup source. Your daughter. The account. Those are the same sentence legally and morally enough for me. He looked down. I know. The waitress refilled my coffee. Neither of us spoke until she left. Then Aaron said, I can repay it. How? Sell equipment. Equipment your business needs? Some. How much? Maybe 20,000 net. What else? I have 27,000 in a retirement account I can access. With taxes and penalties. I know. What else? My truck. You need transportation. I can drive an older company truck. What about the house? Rachel had told me there was equity. Aaron shook his head. Second mortgage already eats most of what's available. I had not known about a second mortgage. Rachel knows? Yes. Does Sophie? No. Of course. What do you want from me? He looked directly at me. A loan. I almost laughed. For how much? Whatever the forensic accountant says is actually missing. So I put the money back now. You owe me instead of Sophie. Yes. And the account looks whole. Yes. And Sophie can go to college without seeing the damage. Aaron stopped. There it was. The same family instinct wearing a new shirt. I pushed my coffee aside. No. His face hardened. You haven't even heard the terms. I heard the purpose. What purpose? To make the statement look repaired before the consequences are repaired. That's not fair. It is exactly fair. She needs college money. When she has an actual college bill, I will consider helping with an actual college bill. You have the money. That does not make your emergency my obligation. His jaw tightened. So you're going to teach us a lesson with Sophie's future? No, I leaned forward. I'm refusing to use Sophie's future to protect you from the result of decisions you made about her past. He looked away. That was as close as I came to anger. When we left, Aaron said one thing beside his truck. I do love her. I know. He looked surprised again. That's what makes this hard? I opened my door. People can love someone and still use what belongs to them. He nodded. Carol had proven that. Rachel had. Maybe I had in smaller ways. Love was never the clean defense we wanted it to be. 2 days later, the forensic accountant restarted work. I paid the deposit directly. There was an engagement letter, invoice, receipt, no dead profiles, no borrowed passwords, no story about paying me back later. Sophie received separate advice from another attorney Megan recommended. Her name was Jill Monroe. I paid that fee too, but Jill made Sophie sign her own engagement letter and explained to me, in polite language, that paying did not make me her client. Good. The complete transaction reconstruction took 11 days. When Megan scheduled the review meeting, everyone came. Rachel, Aaron, Sophie, me. Jill joined for Sophie. The accountant, a man named Leonard Pierce, appeared by video. He had converted 15 months of chaos into 4 pages. Gross withdrawals from the custodial account totaled $84,300. Sophie looked at her parents. Neither moved. Leonard continued. Gross repayments and restorations attributable to Rachel, Aaron, business funds, and Carol Walsh totaled $46,800. I did the arithmetic. Net principal shortage, $37,500, lower than the frightening numbers we had thrown around. Still enormous. Does that include investment growth that money might have earned? Jill asked. No, my current schedule addresses principal movements. Opportunity loss can be estimated separately if needed. Then came the part that mattered. Leonard had divided transactions by available evidence, clearly initiated by Aaron without documented prior consent. Clearly authorized or initiated by Rachel. Ambiguous transactions where messages showed pressure, discussion, or after-the-fact acceptance, but no clean authorization. There was no number that allowed Rachel to stand outside the problem. There was also no number that allowed Aaron to say they had simply decided together. Sophie asked, "Who took the most?" Jill looked at her. "That may not be the most useful question." "I still want to know," Leonard answered factually. "Aaron initiated the larger share of gross withdrawals." "How much did Mom approve?" Approximately $21,800 is supported by evidence of direct initiation or clear prior approval. Rachel closed her eyes, more than she had admitted to me. Sophie looked at her. "You knew it was over 20,000, Rachel whispered, "not until we reconstructed it." "Did you know it was more than you told Grandpa?" "Yes." No excuse. That mattered. Then Sophie asked Aaron, "If Grandma hadn't caught you, would you have stopped?" He took a long time. "I want to say yes. But I don't know." Sophie nodded once. That answer hurt her. I could see it. But it was the first answer he gave her that did not ask her to trust a version of him he could no longer prove. Leonard explained where the money went. Payroll taxes, equipment leases, mortgage, 2 supplier payments, 1 business insurance premium, no affair, no gambling, no hidden luxury purchases, no second family, no mysterious cash stash. The ordinary explanation survived. That was the final truth about the money. Aaron and Rachel had not stolen Sophie's future because they stopped caring about her. They had spent pieces of it while convincing themselves they were preserving the family she would need that future inside. The house, the business, their marriage, the employees, the appearance of stability. Each emergency felt temporary. Together, they became a system. Then, Jill asked the question that changed the meeting. Is there any evidence Sophie authorized any of these uses? No one answered. Of course there wasn't. She was a minor. But hearing it asked that way stripped away every story we had built. Not one transfer had begun with the person whose money it was. Sophie stared at the accounting schedule, then said, "I don't want the account made whole today." Rachel looked at her. "What?" "I want it repaid." "That's what made whole means." "No," Sophie shook her head. "I don't want Grandpa putting $37,000 in and then everybody saying it's fixed." I felt something in my chest loosen. She had understood exactly what I was trying to protect. Aaron asked, "Then what do you want?" She looked at both parents. "You pay it back." Rachel started crying. Sophie continued, "If Grandpa helps me with school, that's between me and Grandpa. It's not your repayment." Aaron nodded slowly. "I understand." "No, Dad." She looked straight at him. "I need you to understand, I'm not asking you to promise." Silence. "I'm asking you to make a plan somebody else can see." That was my granddaughter, 17 years old, still young enough to leave cereal bowls in the sink, old enough to understand what secret promises had cost. Megan proposed a documented repayment arrangement while advising everyone that Sophie's independent lawyer would need to approve any resolution affecting her rights. Aaron would liquidate non-essential equipment and contribute the proceeds. Rachel would contribute from her own savings and future bonuses. Any recovered business receivables attributable to the periods when Sophie's money was used would trigger additional payments. No repayment would come from funds that already belonged to Sophie. No private handshake with me. No, we'll fix it later. Rachel signed the resignation as custodian that afternoon. Not because I asked, because Sophie did. I did not become custodian immediately. After speaking privately with Jill, Sophie chose an independent trust company for the remaining months until she reached the age at which the custodial property would be transferred under the applicable arrangement. That surprised everyone, including me. "I thought you wanted Grandpa," Rachel said. "I trust Grandpa." Sophie looked at me. "That's why I don't want him stuck policing you." I smiled. "That may be the smartest financial decision anybody in this family has made all year." Even Aaron laughed once. The trust company cost money. I offered to pay the administrative fee. Sophie said yes. We documented it. By then, documentation had become almost comforting. When the meeting ended, Aaron stayed seated. Rachel stood beside the door. They looked less like husband and wife than two people who had just learned they were responsible for the same accident. Sophie left with Jill for another private conversation. I started to follow. Rachel said, "Dad." I turned. "I think Aaron and I are separating." Aaron did not object. "For now," he said. I looked at both of them. "Is that because of me?" Rachel shook her head. "No." "Sophie?" "No." "Then whose decision?" She looked at Aaron. "Ours." That answer was enough. I drove back to Tennessee alone. Halfway home, Nina Patel from the bank called. The unauthorized $18,050 had been fully returned. The dispute was closed. Carol's old online banking profile had also been permanently disabled after the fraud review confirmed it should have been deactivated when her death was recorded. I pulled into a rest area before answering further questions. "Does her name still show anywhere?" I asked. "Historical records will always identify transactions she actually made while living." "I understand." "But the profile itself can no longer be used." I looked through the windshield at trucks moving along the interstate. For the first time since Nina turned that screen toward me, the dead could no longer move new money. Only the living could. And from that point forward, none of us would be allowed to hide behind Carol's name when we chose what to do with it. And from that point forward, none of us would be allowed to hide behind Carol's name when we chose what to do with it. The repayment plan did not make anybody feel better. That was probably why it worked. Aaron sold 2 pieces of equipment that his company could function without, and an enclosed trailer he had bought for a project that never materialized. After loans and selling costs, Sophie received a little over $17,000. Rachel contributed $5,000 from savings she had kept separately from their household account. She also changed where her paycheck went. For the first time in 19 years of marriage, her salary was deposited into an account Aaron could not access. He did the same with his business accounts, not because separation required hostility, because sharing every password had stopped being evidence of trust a long time before either of them admitted it. Their lawyers helped them establish ordinary financial boundaries while they lived apart. Rachel rented a small 2-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from their house. Sophie spent most nights with her at first. Then she started spending occasional weekends with Aaron. Nobody forced that schedule. Sophie decided when she was ready. The first weekend she stayed with him, Rachel called me 3 times. The first call was to say she was worried. The second was to ask whether she should text Sophie. The third began with, "Tell me not to interfere." I said, "You don't need me to tell you." "I know." She paused. "Okay." Then she hung up. That became one of the smallest and most encouraging changes I saw in her. Rachel had spent years believing love meant anticipating a problem before someone else experienced it. Now she was learning that sometimes love meant allowing another person to have a conversation you were not invited into. Aaron's business survived. Barely. He reduced staff, closed a small satellite office, and settled one of the commercial payment disputes for less than he believed he was owed. A year earlier, he would have described that settlement as losing money. After everything with Sophie, he described it differently. "I took certainty." That sounded healthier. The company did not suddenly become prosperous. There was no giant receivable that arrived and repaired every mistake. Some months were still tight. When that happened, Aaron used the operating line his bank approved after he supplied updated financials and a personal guarantee. The interest rate annoyed him. I told him that was one purpose of interest rates. They make borrowing feel like borrowing. He did not laugh. A month later, he admitted I had been right. Rachel and Aaron did not file for divorce immediately. They stayed separated for 9 months. Both went to counseling separately before trying marriage counseling together. I stayed out of it. Mostly. I learned that, "How are things with Aaron?" was a question. "What did your counselor say about Aaron?" Was an investigation. Carol would have enjoyed watching me learn the difference at 70. Sophie's account became almost boring. That was the goal. The independent custodian sent statements directly to Sophie and copies to Rachel because she was still her mother, though no longer the person with authority to move funds. I could receive information only when Sophie authorized it. No household password manager, no shared email, no verbal agreement that somebody would replace money next Friday. The account balance rose as repayments came in. It did not immediately return to the number Sophie had once believed she had. That mattered less than I expected. By then she understood what was hers, what had happened, and what adults were doing to correct it. Her college decision changed too. She chose North Carolina State, not because it was the cheapest, not because she wanted to punish her parents by leaving home, because after visiting again, she said it felt like somewhere she could become her own person, without having to monitor whether everyone around her was okay. I understood exactly why that appealed to her. The first tuition bill arrived in July. The custodial account could cover it. I still asked Sophie if she wanted help. She said, "Maybe later." That answer made me proud. Not because she refused money, because she knew she was allowed to decide. I opened a separate savings account in my own name for future education help. No promises about the amount. No account titled for Sophie. No arrangement that could accidentally become somebody else's property before I deliberately chose to give it. When I paid for her textbooks that fall, I did it the old-fashioned way. She sent me the total. I said yes. I wrote the check. She texted me a picture of the receipt. Nobody needed a forensic accountant. Rachel eventually repaid the $1,800 in legal fees that Harrison and Pike had incurred before my unauthorized transfer was returned. I had never asked her to. She mailed me a check. In the memo line she wrote, "Ask first," I called her. "You realize you owed the firm, not me." "I know." "Then what is this?" "For stealing your money." It was returned. That doesn't make what I did disappear. I looked at the check. "You want me to cash it?" "Yes." So I did. Not because I needed $1,800, because refusing it would have turned her accountability into another opportunity for Dad to rescue her. A few months later, Aaron made his first payment under the formal reimbursement schedule. Then another. Then one was late. He called Sophie himself. Not Rachel, not me. He explained the business had a customer payment delayed by 10 days and asked whether the written schedule could be modified for that month. Sophie told him to speak with the attorney and custodian. Aaron did. The payment date was formally extended 12 days. He paid it on the revised date. That was the moment I began believing he might actually understand what had changed. Not because he paid, because he asked. The difference between asking and taking had become the entire story. Carol's $15,000 stayed in Sophie's account. I considered trying to separate it somehow, trying to label it as mine or Carol's or money I had never approved giving. Then I read the January transaction again. Joint account. Authorized by Carol while she was alive. She had legally chosen to give it. I could be angry that she had not told me. I could not rewrite her decision because she was dead. So I left it where she put it. That was part of accepting Carol as a whole person, instead of turning her memory into whatever argument I needed. She had been right about Aaron, right about Rachel needing to tell me, right that Sophie's money needed protection, and wrong to move $15,000 without talking to me. All of those things fit inside the woman I loved for 47 years. The harder part was April 20th, the lie Rachel told Carol. For months, I replayed that afternoon in the den, Carol asking whether Rachel had taken care of things, me saying, she always does, Carol smiling. She gets that from you? I wanted to know what Carol meant. There was no way to know. Eventually, I stopped trying to force one. That uncertainty belonged to me now. Rachel could apologize. She could tell me exactly what she remembered. She could never return the conversation I might have had with my wife. I had to decide what to do with that loss. For a while, I kept Rachel at a distance. We spoke. We had lunch. We did not pretend closeness had returned just because she was sorry. She accepted that better than I expected. One Saturday, almost a year after the bank transfer, she came to Tennessee to help me clear Carol's clothes from the upstairs closet. I had left more of them there than I admitted. Rachel held up one of Carol's old blue cardigans. She hated this thing. She wore it constantly. She complained every time. That was part of wearing it. Rachel laughed. Then she sat on the floor. Dad, there's something I've been trying not to ask. That is progress already. She smiled faintly. Do you forgive me? I folded one of Carol's sweaters. I'm getting there. Rachel nodded. No tears, no speech. No asking me to make her feel better. Just, okay. A few minutes later, she asked whether I wanted to keep the blue cardigan. I said yes. That was enough for that day. By Sophie's 18th birthday, Aaron and Rachel had repaid most of the principal shortage. Not all. The remaining balance was documented. Sophie received control of the funds according to the account rules, with Jill Monroe reviewing everything with her before the transition. Rachel attended the meeting. Aaron did too. Neither signed for Sophie. Neither answered for her. When the account became legally hers to manage, Sophie changed the password before leaving the office. Then she looked at both parents. I love you guys. Rachel started crying. Aaron looked down. Sophie added, that doesn't mean you get my password. Even Megan laughed when Rachel told her later. Rachel and Aaron eventually moved back into the same house. Not because everything had healed, because after 9 months apart, they decided they wanted to try again under different rules. Separate business access, separate personal accounts plus one household account, no shared credentials for accounts belonging to other people, no borrowing from Sophie, no using me as an emergency bank unless they actually asked and accepted that I might refuse. Ordinary rules, the kind healthy families probably